Roar Stash's Journal. July
20th.
2022. I've just come across a couple of hyphenless beggars on the street. Possibly cocked.
At least one.
I'm here to solve the crime of those who forget the hyphen.
I'm here
Reminds me of a joke I heard once. Man goes to see Doctor. Tells him life's depressed. He finds no meaning. Most other podcasts are shit. Doctor says treatment is simple. Go watch Remember the Hyphen. Colton and Adam are always great for a laugh. Man sobs. But Doctor, I am Colton. Cymbal crash. Roll the snare drum. A simp has died in New York tonight.
This might be the longest intro we have ever fucking attempted for
Hey,
this
Adam,
shit.
you want me to warm up that Dr. Pepper for you?
No, I like it better this way.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Average Joe Squad.
And I'm Sargetsu 134.
And I'm Black Friggin' 94.
And welcome to another episode of Remember the Hyphen.
It's a show where we look at comic books, movies, everything in between. And if you haven't been able to tell, we are finally going to review Watchmen.
Wait. I have a question, though. Who is watching the Watchmen? Who's watching the Watchmen watching the Watchmen? Are we
Yes.
the Watchmen watching the Watchmen? Or who's
Yes.
watching us?
I thought we were the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
No,
You know what?
that comic sucks. There's no Ayn Rand in it at all.
What about the movie? What about the
The
movie?
movie's even worse.
The movie's even worse. The movie killed Sean Connery's
Which
ambition
says
to
something,
act.
because the movie I'm parodying is kind of bad in its own way.
Yeah, so...
All right, I'm not gonna wear this the whole time because I'm not gonna be able to fucking breathe after a while.
Your face. You can't lose your face.
My face! Give me back my face!
Yeah, so, what is there to say as an introduction to this book? It's the only comic book on Time's top 100 novels to read before you die.
It's literature. It
Yeah.
actually is part of the canon.
Actually says on the back, one of Time Magazine's 100 best English language novels since 1923, 2 million copies in print, Eisner Award winner and Hugo Award winner. Like, again, what is there to say? This is one of the most well-known comics in history, if probably not the most well-known.
To the point where DC keeps making terrible spin-offs.
What about movies?
Yeah, which don't expect the before Watchmen review because that's probably not ever gonna happen.
Although we might do Rorschach. I've actually
We might do that. We might do the movie at some point.
we probably
I'm
will do
willing
the movie
to do
at some
the
point.
movie. Yeah.
the
but-
5-hour cut.
No.
Colin, we're not watching all the Black Frigate. Okay? Listen, I couldn't even say that. all
That's
of it
what I
in the
was
co-
looking for in here. I was gonna start reading the Black Frigate like right in the middle of him
No!
talking, just so it would show how fucking interrupting it is.
This whole,
You get the fuck out of here!
this
But,
whole review's gonna be too long if we do that.
Yeah. So the backstory. DC had just acquired the. What was the company they acquired?
Oh, Charlton,
Charlton. They had just acquired the Charlton backlog of characters.
which included such characters as Blue Beetle, The Question, the famous dude from the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker.
Yeah, so Alan Moore had the idea to deconstruct those characters, and initially DC was okay with it, and then they were like, wait a minute, we just paid so much money for these fucking people.
And you're just
we're
gonna
let
murder
them,
them?
we're just gonna let them murder or maim them? Okay, no. Keep the story, but make them different characters.
Which Moore himself has even stated, yeah, that was probably a good idea.
It's all horseshit.
This was Alan Moore before he turned into crazy wizard Rasputin.
I'm gonna write a story about an 80-year-old Wendy from Peter Pan giving
no.
Alice her first sexual release.
No.
That's not even me making a joke.
We're not gonna ever review that.
That's
either,
a
so
real
nobody
thing.
asked.
And
Nobody asked for
We're
that.
not getting to the Lovecraft.
I'm not gonna
fish.
review V for Vendetta either. So
Yeah.
fuck off. But anyway.
Oh, I could tell you a whole bunch of bullshit about that.
Yeah, what resulted was, like I said, one of the most critically acclaimed comic books, probably the most critically acclaimed comic book ever released. What everybody,
Oh,
I would
absolutely.
say yes, definitely.
it's the only one that's ever shown up on Time Magazine's list.
Yeah.
Well, also, I mean, and not to be, because trust me, this comic book should prove that whether it be comic books, animation, any medium can have art when done well. And the sad thing is, I think that why this is more successful than like DC or Marvel comics, even though they could have the same level of storytelling and and art.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is, people think, oh, Batman, Superman, unfortunately, as a culture, we think that's kid stuff, or at least we don't think it's serious.
Yeah, it would have been better if instead of having superheroes be the mainstay, it'd be pirates.
Okay, Shay. But I think that the fact that these are based on characters, but they're original, I think it helps it make it more accessible to the critics. You know, they're not going to be snobby like, oh, Superman, this is
Shallow and pedantic.
I agree. Yes, shallow and pedantic.
But yeah, this was also the start of Alan Moore becoming very disjaded with the comic book industry, rightfully so. Because like he was supposed to, when this went out of print, he was supposed to maintain the rights to it.
Yeah.
You want to know what DC's never let go out of print?
Yeah.
Although to be fair, I don't think it's necessarily completely on a malicious on their end. It's the book is like a number one.
It's all horse shit. I got fucked.
Well, yeah. I mean, some of it is, but like,
I don't ever cash DC's checks anymore either.
Oh, yeah,
I don't want any of their fucking money.
He's pretty spiteful.
all right, if you want to fucking be hungry, my dude. But
No,
like,
I'm gonna write Miracle Man.
don't get me started on the bullshit that is Miracle Man.
I'll live off a Swamp Thing.
Well, no, now he's teaching classes for the BBC on how to write.
Yeah, those master classes. I think that's what the thing is.
Yeah. Now
As much as we joke, Alan Moore's a really talented guy.
he is. It's just
Definitely.
Crazy wizard Rasputin is basically what he is now.
well, the other thing is like, as much as he complains about how the big two screwed him over, like, no offense to Moore, like, did you look at the contracts before you signed it, or realize what you were writing was going to be as big as it was? Like, you know, hindsight is 20/20 in that kind of regard.
Yeah, well, also, I mean, I mentioned that because you told me the story of Image Comics, right?
Yeah.
Where they kind of sold themselves as, hey, if you're a comic, writer and artist, you'll have more ownership of intellectual properties of your characters. Which, as you told me later on, they're like, nope, that in the contract we're gonna own them. So at least I would say, I imagine with Marvel and DC or the big two, at least they didn't portray themselves as that, like, hey, you're gonna have full control.
Well, that's a bit of an oversimplification of it, but yeah, like,
yeah, sorry. I mean, I mentioned that'd be a whole different.
well, then it's more like these writers would like create stuff for other writers and be like, all right, where's my cut for this character I created? And they'll be
Yeah.
like, what do you mean you created it in my universe? Which Moore himself did go on to do a bunch of work for Image. He was one of the writers for Spawn. I want to say Astro City was done in Image, which I'd actually like to read. I've actually heard a lot of stuff about or not Astro City. Tom Strong. He did the beloved run on Supreme, where he took Rob Liefeld's stupid Superman ripoff and made him an actual interesting character and a deconstruction of Superman.
Okay.
But
Could you get any more words in that one breath?
yeah,
I heard you running out of breath. But could you do any more words in that one breath?
But and of course we all know most of like the stuff he's done. The other problem is like, anytime someone has tried to adapt his works to another medium,
They fuck it up somehow.
the only one I think they've never fucked up was the one episode of Justice League that did for The Man Who Has Everything. Even then it changes stuff, but it does so in a way that actually makes that story interesting. And Saturday Morning Watchmen, of course. Oh no, Adrian! The Reds are polluting the city lake! What do we do?
We call the Watchmen. Do.
I mean, it certainly would have been better than the Simpsons episode where they did Watchmen babies and V for Vacation.
Yeah, jeez. Like, I don't want to talk too much about
And
the
also-
movie because we're not doing the movie.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. But can we also talk about? I mean, okay, Alan Moore. I gotta say, I've heard of him. I respect him as what his reputation. But in terms of writing a story and dialogue, for the most part, genius. I would say a lot of this stuff can be even like in a book literature. But let's also give who's the artist Gibbons?
Dave Gibbons.
Dave
Dave
Gibbons.
Gibbons.
Like, I'll be honest. Some of the stuff here is just beautiful,
Oh, his art is really gorgeous.
cinematic, and at times haunting.
Dave Gibbons actually did Batman versus Predator. Mm-hmm. And the art there is amazing too. Like, he is a amazing artist, and I wish he got a lot more talk about with this book, because like, as much as Moore's story is really good, it would not be nearly as great without Gibbons' art.
No, I mean, to be honest, I think that Gibbons understood the cinematic feel of the story.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's panels, like, they could have just cut, like, just 2 panels, but he made, like, 4 panels to give, like, more significance to the small details that has larger implications.
Yeah, which would become an actual kind of technique used in comics. Mm-hmm. I know there's a Spider-Man issue. It's one of the ones where Harry's the Green Goblin. It's just 9 panels, which is what they call it, the 9-panel layout.
Yeah.
It's just him slowly flying into the screen, and it really gives you this feeling of like terror and like this cinematic feel that like comic books from this point forward would have.
Right. And also, you said
for
that,
good and for bad.
And you saw also that it uses. There's a technique that this book uses called decompression.
Yes, where basically you take story elements and you stretch them over multiple panels or pages instead of being like a couple of pages or panels or maybe like a page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which, and I will admit, that's a problem I have with a lot of comics, is where they're like, hey, I have 2 stories worth of 2 issues worth of story here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great. If you could stretch that to 6,
Right.
like Brian Michael Bendis is notorious for. But here it works really well because, again, it's not like he's doing it to pad out the story. He's using it to give a lot of weight to what's happening in the panels.
Right. It builds some atmosphere. It builds suspense. It builds significance for the scene.
Yeah, and it also allows like the narration to happen while we have stuff happening in the background to kind of like, I don't know what word I would say here. Like it like to emphasize the narration. Like when the comedian is thrown out of the building and we have the narration, which I kind of parodied in the beginning of this book.
Right, the clown story,
yeah, like that works really well because the joke like being told ties into his death.
It times really well as you're reading it.
Yeah.
And also, another thing, a great thing both about the story and the art, parallelism. There's a lot of great though I guess the one we'll talk later, the Black Frigate one. Other than that, most of the parallelism of like whether it be 2 different scenes or characters talking while something happens on TV, or a B story and A story like happening at the same time, but they're alternating. There's a lot of great parallelism in this that's very masterfully done.
Yeah. Would you like to anything you want to bring up?
I'm gonna be honest. I kind of was getting lost back into the art.
That's what I'm saying.
While
Yeah, I
you guys were
noticed.
talking. I was kind of like zoned out. I'm not gonna lie.
Also, I got a controversial opinion. So you guys know about Roy Lichtenstein, right?
Who?
Roy Lichtenstein, the guy who was a painter who basically just copied comic book panels and made it to art.
Oh, I've heard of that guy. Yeah.
He's part of like the Andy Warhol type of people.
Oh, okay.
Oh, one of those
Okay.
motherfuckers.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the thing. Look, I'm not trying to, and once again, I'm not like, I'm all for like, modern, even pop art, but I understand how that motherfucker, is, world famous, but some of these panels, they're just, I would say, they're just panels by, like, especially like on the Mars where Lori.
Oh my god, the Mars stuff is so pretty to look at.
It's awe-inspiring. It's really wonderful.
That's actually one thing I actually will grant the movie. The scenes that they did on Mars, like they're straight out of like the
Really?
panels. Yeah, like as much as I don't like that movie, Snyder tried so hard to capture the look of the book with the movie.
Okay.
The only thing I don't like that I don't think he gets the look of Night Owl down.
Right.
But that's mostly because like he doesn't understand that that's supposed to be like the crest of an owl.
What, his hair?
Yeah, like his cowl. Like
Yeah, exactly.
like instead
right.
it's more like Batman horns, and I'm like, no, that. Which I get that like it's like a horned owl, but like that there
even-
is a different type of owl.
Exactly.
That's a barn owl.
Right.
Now I want to ask you 2 questions.
Sure.
What is your feeling of the fact that every issue has a dossier at the end that like expands the world? Do you think that it's important to the book, or do you think it was just kind of padding to try and expand a story with like filler?
You want to go first, Cole? You want me to go first?
You can go first, Doug.
So one thing I do think is you're saying this was not in the original, of course, editions. This was like
Oh no, this came with the issues.
really.
Yeah,
That's
they were packed in with the issues. At the end of the book, you would always have these.
Okay, so personally, I do love the dossiers. I actually think it really adds, even if it's not essential to the story, I think it adds a lot. Though, I mean, I think there are some parts that are kind of essential, like the one about the guy, the scientist writes about Dr. Manhattan, the one who is quoted saying,
Oh, Superman is here and he's an American.
or I thought it was God, but yeah,
That's what he's quoted as, but it's
actually God. And then
yeah,
of course,
God is here and he's an American.
And then he, of course, talks about how, like, not only is, Dr. Manhattan, like, kind of a threat to, because in the book, for those who have read, Dr. Manhattan, he's a nuclear scientist that,
Oh, spoilers for this amazing book.
Oh, no, yeah.
That's like 30 years old.
Well, that's the thing. If you're
Which-
going to...
I'm sure most of you have either read it or heard of it, but like, Go read the book.
Oh yeah, stop right now and read it. It's worth it, even if you kind of know. Because I actually knew the ending kind of, but I was still like, whoa, like a lot of the stuff. So, okay, warning, spoiler alert. But so he gets in a nuclear accident. He becomes pretty much a demigod or almost a god kind of.
Yeah,
Like, he can pretty much deconstruct and reconstruct things on a quantum level.
Yeah, because once you can manipulate molecules at the level he's at, you basically can alter all of reality.
Right, exactly. But the scientists, even though everybody's like, oh, he's a great asset to America, because it's also during the Cold War. It's like an alternative Cold War universe.
Yeah.
Where fucking Nixon, after winning Vietnam, is elected 4 times.
Which, fun fact, they actually do hint that Watergate was going to happen in this universe, but the 2 dudes who were going to expose him were found dead in a parking garage.
Oh yeah, so
it's implied that like the comedian killed them.
Oh yeah, well I mean he even said like don't ask me where I was when JFK got assassinated. So yeah, that's a whole.
Which the movie like really decides to play on like its head, be like, no, he actually was the guy who killed.
Exactly, showing the opening.
Go fuck yourself.
So back to the dossier. The scientist is like, okay, yeah. So this guy is actually not just a threat, but the Russians are, because the whole thing is with Dr. Manhattan, the United States say, hey, this is our ace in the hole. This is our way to defeat scare the Russians from backing off, and but the scientist says, oh no, this is not going to work because the Russians, they're willing to go out if they find any weakness, and of course if you read the book and as we'll discuss in the spoiler later, when that happens, the Russians are willing to push the world to World War II or World War III because, as Cole knows from history, the Russians after World War II were like, no, we got fucked over by the Nazis. The world's against us. We're willing to either destroy everything if it attacks us, or we're going to win this. So I think the dossiers help understand the world. Even if it's not necessary, I think it helps. And of course, there's things about Sally with her relationship with Lori, Silk Spectre. Also, I'm trying to think. I also love John or Dan's the article he wrote about orthography.
Yeah.
Because once again, that's great character development. Because it shows because his whole character is like, oh, I'm old and impotent, and I'm just childish things. He then finds the zeal for life, and that helps establish it. So I don't know. Okay, maybe not essential, but I love it. I love the dossiers.
Your thoughts on the dossiers?
I honestly love the dossiers.
And for the record, when I asked that question, I actually am for. I just wanted to see your guys.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, as somebody who does writing like Doug does,
exactly.
To me, it's a genius way of doing world building within this without being so overbearing or like overloading. I view it as the dossiers are the added paragraphs of internal stuff that we don't see in the panels.
Right.
But at the same time, they're also not just fat.
They're not filler.
Yeah, they're not filler. They add stuff to it.
Exactly. It's like
even if they're not directly relevant to what is happening in the story at that very instant.
Yeah.
There's they'll call back to it.
Right.
Or it'll give you like knowing the stuff that's in the dossiers will give you a better understanding of like, well, this is probably how this character is thinking at this point,
right?
Because of what happened all those years ago. Like it's an ingenious way of doing the storytelling in a way that feels very organic.
Yeah.
While also not breaking you out of the flow of the story.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it kind of just feels like I view it very much akin to seeing stuff happening in the side in like the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It just shows you that there is a world here. There's more going on in the world around the characters than just what's going on with them directly and what they're interacting with directly. That this is still a fictional world that's inhabited by millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually argue that I don't think Watchmen would be the same without it, because like I loved like the one where it's talking about how Ozymandias wants to make a toy line for the Watchmen,
right.
And like he technically can't get the license for like half the characters, but it's okay because like and then they're gonna put like random like gangster characters in there, which is I think a reference to like G.I. Joe.
Wait, you mean a terrorist?
Yeah, terrorists, which is a reference to like G.I. Joe.
Right, because it's because of times of tension and war, which people love.
Low key, I wish DC would straight up just make those Watchmen toys.
Like
Bubastis, I actually love. I actually wish that thing was real because I love that thing.
I feel bad at the end for it too.
Like every time I play a Pokemon game, when I get an Umbreon in it, I actually name the Umbreon Bubastis. I almost always name it Bubastis because I love that name.
Do you name your character Ozzy and you go on?
No, I'm not. Surprisingly, no, I don't name myself after a genocidal maniac.
Well, ooh, once again, spoilers. But I know it's all. But actually, I was thinking more of the Watchmen cartoon parody.
Oh,
You guys solve mysteries like Scooby Doo.
yeah.
Oh, can I also say like about the actually you touch on a good thing about the dossiers, like it's not essential but helps build it. It's like let's say Resident Evil. You know how you can find like notes around. You
Yeah.
don't have to read them. It's like flavor text. Like even like what is it like what's it called? Dark Souls. Like they have
Yeah.
that. Like they don't tell you the story, but you can go around and learn it yourself.
Mhm.
I think that's the same thing with that. Like you don't need to, but it really helps enhance the story and the back and the world of the story.
Which also, fun fact about the book Under the Hood that's in here, they've actually referenced that in DC.
Really?
One of the books we actually did on this channel was Kingdom Come, and there's a part where he actually sees like the narrator Norman McKay. He goes past this like I guess it's supposed to be like a pawn shop or an antique shop,
Right.
and there's all these like little sight gags. One of which is the fucking almanac from Back to the Future Part 2.
I mean, that's
But
awesome.
one of the ones in there is the book Under the Hood
Ooh.
by the First Night Owl, like implying that like that book was written about their heroes.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, I love pretty much all the dossiers. In fact, I think they do much better jobs of like giving characters thoughts and stuff and like narrations than well, fuck, you already brought it up. Then Tales of the Black Frigate.
Yeah.
Like, so, for those of you who've never read the book, Tales of Black Frigate is a pirate comic because one of the alternate realities of this is that when Action Comics #1 came out, it inspired a lot of people to become actual superheroes. Well, I say superheroes. They didn't have powers. They were just vigilantes in
Crime fighters.
costumes.
Masked crime fighters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in doing so, as Under the Hood says, superhero comics became kind of pastiche because it's like, or neat, like, because like, why would we want to read about that? We live it.
Right. Exactly.
So the defining driving force in comics became pirate books, which I don't understand that because like if you want to go by actual comics history, like which I'm not saying for or against the pirate thing. It would actually have been more Western because Western comics were actually a very big thing.
Yeah, like John Hicks was kind of like influenced by that.
Well, like there's all sorts of Western comics
Oh, yeah,
because
but
like
I
they
meant-
were in vogue when
There was all kinds of comics in general. There was romance,
Yeah, like
ones,
romance,
there was teen
horror.
ones, there was comedy
Detectives.
ones.
Well,
Yeah, there
but like
all kinds
I
of
was just
stuff.
thinking about like what book like children of the age would have like drawn themselves to since like superheroes were what children were drawing children to comics. I figured westerns would probably be the more accurate.
like the more like logical one to go.
Yeah, the more logical if we were going by like full real world. But you know, more is British. Maybe pirates were like a bigger thing in the UK.
Also, maybe this is also. Oh, there's two things. One, maybe it was also more as like excuse to write in kind of like that old like 1800s like
Yeah.
purple prose like as the Black Frigate kind of dabs into. But also maybe because I remember like Ozymandias in one of his like in the dossier he explains about like because he owns after retiring from crime fighting he's basically a corporate CEO and billionaire, so
Yeah.
he had that thing about what to do with advertisements. He actually made a good point. I think kind of like what Alan Moore was thinking. When people are in times of like in this book like in the 80s like Cold War where doomsday is just around the corner, they kind of like the idea of like the past as a mythical like exotic place to lose yourself into.
Well, I mean that's even hinted at with the perfume nostalgia that constantly gets shown in the
actually,
book.
that's the one where I that's kind of like where I'm got that from exactly, and so I think that's maybe where he was going for. But even then, it's like you can still done Cowboys and Indians or
Well, like I said, that's just me more like knowing like what I know historically about comics.
right.
But
Or maybe he just likes pirates. I don't know.
yeah, but getting back to Tales of the Black Frigate, I love this book. Like it is amazing. But if there is one thing I would get rid of or say I don't like,
Or tone
it's
down.
it's Tales of the Black Frigate. Because it's a story that's told in universe. That's supposed to like, if you read it and like are really good at the parallels, it's paralleling the plot of the story.
Exactly.
With
right.
this pirate, with this captain who, his ship gets attacked by the Black Frigate. He gets abandoned on this island, and he does whatever he can to get home.
Right.
And he does a lot of fucked up shit to get home, like using the corpses of his former crew to like tie up and make like a raft.
Which is real fucked.
He like kills
real
seagulls with his
fucked.
bare hands and like eats them and like
And then he goes Sharknado, like,
Yeah.
on a, punch up sharks,
Yeah, basically implying that, like, he's doing whatever he can to get home,
to save them from the, because he's also afraid the Black Frigate's going to destroy everybody,
Yeah.
including his family.
which, for reference, they never actually show you the last issue of the Black Frigate. They talk about, like, this comic publisher that, like, what the actual ending of that would have been, which is he gets home, the Black Frigate never even attacked the place, and so when he gets there, they're all like, yo, what the fuck did you do?
Well, no, he thinks that the people there are the pirates, or they're,
Oh yeah, I forgot about that
yeah,
part.
they think they're the pirates. Either they're the pirates, or they're, because he killed the couple, the moneylender and his wife, because he thought they were in cahoots with the pirates. So, yeah, basically he becomes the monster.
It's a slow descent into madness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Edgar Allan
Which kind of
Poe.
mirrors just like the political landscape of what's going on in the story as it's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
With the whole thing about the Soviets pushing, and getting closer to nuclear war. It mirrors the slow the slow descent of the main character in Black Frigate into that madness.
And also,
Yeah.
the fear of the people who are like reading, like, because it's read by a kid, and he's always being talked to by the news paper guy, like this vendor guy.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of mirror a bit too, and it's very it takes different like parallelings, but it tries to, like, as you said, mirrors what's going on in terms of like the political, social character. It's supposed to add more to the theme, but of course I imagine we all have the same opinion of why it's not the best at this.
Yeah, because it just slows down it's like one of the few things that, like, really slows down the book.
Yeah, I even tried to give it, like, okay, at first I didn't care. The second time with the shark, like when he talks about the shark attacks, I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. I like this. But then, as you said, even if it's like a cool idea, it slows it down to a snail's pace. It's like, it's just ugh. And then, of course, here's my thing too. Is also, I think the reason why is because a lot of it you read from the panel, like, it's like written from the character's like thoughts as he's recounting it. So it's like in
Yeah.
the corner, and it's written like prose. It's written like it's a book, which for a comic like this, like, I think Adam can understand. Like, when it comes to dialogue, it's not, dialogue is easier to get things done and more interesting
Yeah.
for a comic book. But when it's like actual like book prose, like things you would write in a book, it just doesn't mesh well with a comic.
It's also, isn't it written in cursive?
Yes,
Which
yeah.
which I hate when they write stuff in cursive in comics, because it always is
yeah,
hard to
because listen,
read.
I hate fucking cursive writing. Period. I hate writing this shit. I've never written it since grade school. I always print stuff. I hate reading this shit because it don't look right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I don't think I've read anything in cursive, like, in terms of actual like literature. Like,
Well, then when you write it in small fucking boxes,
Oh, yeah.
it's hard as shit to try and decipher what they're reading.
it strains a lot. And also, it's like, it's not even like a couple of lines or like even like 3 lines. It's like, what, 6 lines of prose of this, like, very, like, once again, old fashioned writing. It's like something you're reading, like Christopher, what's his name? Who's the guy calling the book about the guy who was stranded in the 1700s? Defoe. Not Willem Dafoe, but oh, god damn it, it's gonna.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
There was a book in 1700s about an actual guy who was stranded on an island.
Robinson Crusoe.
Yeah, Crusoe, not Defoe. God damn it, you guys
Yeah,
ruined me.
Robinson Crusoe.
I would pay to see a movie where Willem Dafoe plays Robinson Crusoe. That'd be funny as fuck.
I'm thinking of
It's just him on the lighthouse, but just even more unhinged.
Oh, perfect,
If I
exactly.
had a steak.
Robinson Crusoe.
fuck it.
Crusoe. That's well. Actually, I wonder if that's really kind of like the inspiration of the whole shipwreck thing. I don't know, like the
Maybe.
language.
Well,
it slows it down.
Then I think the other problem for me is it reads a lot like some of the shittier parts of the Dark Age of comics, where everyone's like, yeah, no, we're going to do purple prose, and it's going to just be pages and pages of these characters talking about how
Right.
much they want to have sex with this city,
Which
if it were real.
Which even then is like, in literature you don't do purple prose that much. Hell, even the best writers, like Truman Capote, the guy who wrote In Cold Blood, read like some of his early works, very purple prose. When it comes to In Cold Blood, he puts it in like nice low scants of it. You got to moderate that shit, or else it becomes just ugh.
Or else it becomes like some of the worst of Frank Miller's writing.
Well, unless you talk about the one Batman, the one we can't say, the one
Oh.
with the insensitive language.
Oh, there's actually a part in that where Batman's talking about how Gotham is beautiful, like
Oh, is that what
post-Sweet
you're talking
Lenore.
about?
Yeah,
Oh,
Where Gotham
jeez.
is beautiful like post-Sweet Lenore before she contracted her disease and the
Wait a
first
minute.
speck of blood was...
Wasn't that also the same kind of language they used in that? The guy who wrote Fortunate Son. What was the one with the jazz?
Kind of.
I mean, I swear there was kind of like that language, especially the shadow thing. It's like we get
Yeah,
it.
like where you're just a shadow. I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean?
But I swear there was like in one.
No,
of the-
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
but-
there is like that purple prose that's just. And trust me, as a writer, especially when I was younger, it's easy. It's very tempting to get into purple prose, but you can't write like your 1800s Parisian poet drinking absinthe and talking about the decay of the century.
And then the next
you're
page,
pretentious.
the next page, you have like these two dudes dressed in goofy ass fucking costumes. Beat the
What
shit
the heck is fucking it?
Yeah, like
It's like,
Smoking- and smoking-
you'd look at it and be like, what the fuck is this?
And also,
Yeah.
the dudes have like instead of mohawks, as top knots or something.
I'm gonna write a story about fucking Dracula fucking talking about dystopian future of 1984, and then he turns around and his butler is wearing a fucking clown suit and fucking the horse. It's like,
so.
you would look at me and be like, Colton,
Yeah,
what the fuck is this?
because
what did you write?
yeah,
What have you been smoking?
because
And
like
where
you,
did
I didn't smoke anything. I dropped a couple hits of acid and I hit the typewriter.
like you and I, you know. You've read Frank Miller's Daredevil now. When I had you, like, even you have to admit, as much as that book's great, like some of the prose is just Jesus.
It's ungodly.
Colin, what are your thoughts on Tales of the Black Frigate as a?
In the if we're just talking about its representation in the story,
Yeah.
it's okay. I feel like there's a lot of points where it does drag the plot down, like the pacing.
Yeah, especially because as you
But
were going through it, like
I do like what I talked about, how it mirrors the very slow descent into madness of the entire world in the comic, which I think was definitely the whole fucking point of putting it in there,
Yeah.
most likely. But at the same time, it's also one of those things where it's like, yes, it adds to it, but at the same time, it really takes you out of what... I'm reading a book within a book,
yeah.
Right.
and not in the way that, like, I read books in Skyrim.
Exactly.
It just
What,
takes...
Blessing-
Well, especially 'cause, like,
Mage?
it breaks... No, I've never read that. I told you that. But it breaks the pacing.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially like when you were like skimming through it, like it's like being read to us while like Night Owl and Silk Spectre are like rescuing people out of a
You'll be
burning building.
reading it, and then it comes up again. And I'm like, oh fuck, I forgot this was even in there.
I think that's the other problem, like because it's so scant when it shows up, you're like, what the fuck was that? Oh right, the Tales of the Black Frigate.
Right. Exactly. So you gotta readjust yourself.
Like, and I know. Here, oh,
I guess it's getting hot.
Open the windows.
it was raining before.
I feel like I'm in a hot box, a sauna.
Like I said, it was raining before, which is why I.
Died of asphyxiation in Adam's Jeep.
Motherfucker, I was wearing the mask. You know how hot it was in that?
Forever trapped on an episode of the show.
This is the Black Frigate.
Imagine if you
What happened to the American dream? It came true.
came true.
I no longer have to deal with Riley Simps.
Imagine if you will.
That's a joke, by the way. It's a complete joke.
A realm not of sight and sound, but of mind. We're a couple of dipshits on a podcast talk about.
I totally wanted to
I'll be
be
honest, that's a
trapped
pretty
in the
good boat
podcast,
sailing.
forever stuck in the fucking Walmart parking lot. That's fucking great.
That's perfect.
This is totally where I want to be stuck.
That is just
Oh,
real perfect.
but, all right.
Oh wait. So one thing I want to add also like about the Black Frigate, I agree with Colin. I appreciate what it's trying to do. I do appreciate, like I said, the main thing about that is how good tensions can lead to horrific things, which, as we get to the ending, it's going to make more sense. So.
No good deed goes unpunished.
But so one thing I want to compare it to in terms of like how effective paralleling can do with okay, remember where it's gonna get a bit seamy in here. Okay, where Niall or Dan and Lori, Niall and Silk Spectre. So after because originally she's staying John, but then they John leaves Earth, and which we'll talk about I imagine later.
Well, then he tries to gangbang her with 3 different clones of himself.
Sorry, Lori, I just don't know how to please you. And I'm
So
like,
you thought-
so you go instantly to that?
So you
What
thought
the
plugging
fuck?
all her holes like a bowling ball
You
was going to turn
understand,
her
he has
on?
more important things like he's doing science.
I love when I lick your finger. It's like kissing a battery. It's like licking a battery. I'm like,
Gross.
how do you know that?
Exactly. Jesus Christ, Lori.
Although I have to wonder, do you think that's like how, when she decides to put her mouth on the old blue crank, do you think that's
Oh my god. I knew we were going to get to this fucking situation.
See, aren't you all glad I didn't paint myself blue and just...
Fuck this shit. I'm gonna go fucking redo last week's episode.
I'm going to talk about...
Aren't you all glad I did Rorschach at the beginning instead of Dr. Manhattan, where you all went to see my dick?
I would have paid to have Riley. We'll just spray paint him blue. He's buck ass naked in the backseat.
Okay, but he has to
tired
do
of these
that
animals.
weird dance thing that Tulsa Dune from Dune does, where he's like, oh, like...
Oh my god.
Cole knows what I'm talking about.
God damn you guys. You're animals. You're both animals. So Becca was saying, okay, so after that, Dan, Lori, so they actually start to, actually connect with each other. And of course, there's a scene where they decide to, start having sex. Now, of course, the thing is, Dan, if, who's the second Niall, not the first, he, unfortunately, throughout in the beginning, he's very low self-confidence, insecure, impotent, I thought originally medically, but no, more psychologically, he's pretty much a beta male, to be honest.
Well, then, a lot of it is, like, his own psychology, because he feels impotent, because he... nuclear Armageddon is on the brink, and even if he were still a superhero,
Well, even before
what
that,
could he do?
Well, even for that though, like the whole he feels like it's all childish, it's just adventures as romance of like King Arthur legends or whatever. So he's trying to have sex with Lori, and they're having, but at the same time because they're they were watching TV before this.
Or my index.
Oh, okay. So
Where it actually lists the characters they're based on.
Oh,
Yeah, 'cause
wow.
a lot of people think that Rorschach is based on this other character that Steve Ditko created, because he also created
The Question?
Is this character called the A or something like that?
Oh,
But
yeah.
like this here right here proves that it was originally The Question.
Right, okay. Because the A was the objectivist one, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, so is The Question. It's just more modern writers are like, yeah, maybe he's not.
He's more a
that-
conspiracy guy, right? Like in Justice
Yeah.
League series?
Like they more play up the whole he's kind of a conspiracy nut sort of.
Right. Okay, so as back
I like how for him, one of the descriptions, because this is David Gibbons' handwritten notes concerning the looks of Watchmen.
Oh, wow.
For Rorschach, his notes just say, murderer, psychopath, or saint.
Jesus.
Quintessential Ditko, exclamation point.
Essential to go.
Utterly alone, impeccable, ruthless, unpredictable, wild card, Brosnan.
Wild card, bitches! Yeehaw!
Oh, like
Death Wish.
yeah, Death Wish
You're
Brosnan. Yeah, that's
This ain't over.
Okay, so back to what I was trying to say. So as they're watching TV, Ozymandias is who's pretty much like a Superman turns up, a human Superman that he's super intelligent and super fit. What he's like in his 50s or something.
yeah.
So he's doing this thing on TV for like a charity. So as the narrators are talking about how potent and vigorous and all that with Ozymandias on TV, you cut back to Dan having trouble with Lori.
No.
So once again, it's a great paralleling, and also why it works because it's TV dialogue.
Yeah.
It's quicker, it's more accessible, it's easier to process. It's not like the Black Frigate where it's dragging because it's written like Purple Prose, Purple Prose novel.
It also helps because that's what's going on in Night Owl's mind when he's trying to get the ignition switch flipped, as it were.
Exactly. So I feel like I use that example because I thought that was a better example of paralleling versus the Black Frigate, which once again.
Oh my God, were they going to make Rorschach fat?
No, that's not him.
No,
Oh,
that's
that's
the
not him.
detective, right?
I saw the Rorschach sketch. I'm like,
That's the detective, dude.
oh, that's
Yeah.
the detective. Okay, I thought that was like an early sketch of Rorschach. I'm like, that would have been way funnier if Rorschach was actually just like
Right.
a big fat dude. Like, Dan, I need more brains.
It's a one kid eats like 10.
There's just like 30 cans apiece.
Or when he's talking to Morlock, his ex-villain, like instead of cracking one egg in the end, he cracks a whole.
He's just
carton.
cracking the whole.
Gotta break a few eggs for almost all.
Gotta make a few eggs for an omelet. You're not even cooking them. You're just eating them raw. What the fuck?
Also, I got a pension. I can't, I got a budget.
Yeah.
Okay, so more things about the Black Frigate before we. I'm pretty good with the Black Frigate.
I'm pretty good too. You have anything before we?
It's unnecessary.
Yeah, that's yeah.
I would say either that or it should be cut down.
That or cut. Yeah.
Actually, I have a question. it's a quick one if you don't mind.
Oh no, go ahead.
When did you guys first heard of Watchmen? Because I'm gonna be honest, two things. I'm pretty sure I may have heard from the trailers of the movie. And what year did it came out? The movie.
2000.
I want to say for me, it actually was when the movie came out because I was like, I saw this book. I actually want to say I was like, because the movie came out in 2012 and I was still in college.
Yeah.
And I think I was with my friends.
Wait, 2012?
Yeah.
I thought it was 2009, maybe.
No, the movie's 2012.
Really?
Yeah. At least I think so. But regardless,
Yeah.
whatever. I'd seen trailers for this movie and I was like, what the hell is this? And
2009.
oh yeah, that was 2000.
I thought it was like 2009.
I don't know.
It's all
I don't know why I thought it was 2012.
It's all good, man.
I remember watching it a lot in 2012. But so actually now I remember now that you've said that. So I saw the book. I think I bought it here at this Walmart,
Right.
and I was like, well, you know what? I'm kind of curious about what this is based on with this movie, and I picked it up. And I read through it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is actually pretty good. And then the movie came out, and then I was like, oh man, they did so much fucking shit wrong.
Look what they did to my boy. They massacred
Well,
him.
this is also 19, Adam at 19, who was like, oh, I can't believe they fucked this up.
Adam, after watching Linkara, looking to shed some bad comics.
He's actually probably the reason why I got so kind of, like, my opinion actually, because I was watching him at the time. I think he was one of the reasons why I started to form my opinion on this book like I did. But I just, yeah, and then I think that was also the first time where I was like, man, superhero movies can actually be really fucking awful.
That was your introduction to, wow, there are such bad superhero movies.
I mean,
It's kind of like when you find out, we're weebs, so it's like when you're like starting to get anime as a teenager, like, oh, anime is good. Then you find one that's like, oh no,
oh, that was actually fucking terrible.
exactly. But
This bad too? Oh god.
exactly. So
I know why I'm conflicting it because I'm mixing it up with Dark Knight fucking Rises.
oh, that
Another
makes-
fucking film that at age 22 Adam was like, oh, I can't believe they did that. Batman don't fucking quit. Oh, this movie's fucking terrible. My college friends are like, Adam, you just have too high expectations of this movie. No, fuck you.
He's calling you out.
Fuck you, you owe me a movie.
And
Fuck you! You owe me the movie.
and $6,000.
Although
I don't want to fucking hear any shit, and I don't fucking give a shit. I fucking closed the comic, therefore you owe me the comic accuracy. Well, trying to adapt that. Fuck you! You owe me the movie.
Oh,
But okay, so I don't think we should go issue by issue because
No, we're
that would
not
take
gonna
way
no,
too
no,
long.
No.
So what I thought we would do is we would talk about the major players of the book,
Oh yeah, definitely.
specifically the Watchmen cast, and kind of talk about what we liked about them, maybe just kind of discuss them as characters.
Yeah, I think that would be a better way because to be
Because to be
honest,
fair, there's a lot that happens in this book. The Watchmen itself, the book itself, is really a character piece.
the characters.
Well, character. Well, yeah, that's gonna.
I know what
characters
you're trying to
piece,
say, but the point is because to be honest, it's kind of a risk of doing multiple characters. But this
Yeah.
book does a good job of covering them all. So yeah.
So, let's start with the big blue crank in the room. Let's start with Dr. Manhattan.
Jeez.
Doug's positive cuck representation.
Look, okay. Do you want to talk about that right now, or save it till the end? We talk about the ending. About with the reference to Cuck reference.
Yeah, why don't we
Yeah,
do
just
that?
go ahead. Like we're not gonna explain the entire plot.
Yeah, you might as well.
All right, so I'm not gonna get to the
This
whole
isn't
ending.
Wikipedia.
Well, okay, I'm not gonna get just the ending. So at the end, like after Laurie and Alman, like let's just say they're trying to figure out what just happened because something fucked up's happened at the end, and they of course have sex again to help process the trauma.
Which I kind of wish Ozymandias came out of his room like, why the fuck are you two naked on my fucking floor?
No sheets, no rubber sheets.
Yeah, like, God, I'm gonna have to mop this up because I just killed all my butlers.
This is Bubatis' room. Your
Oh, but Bass says, no, don't lick the wet spot. Oh, Jesus.
wait, no, he's dead.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, Bubastis is dead. I was going to make this her, Morium, guys.
Like
You've tainted this room.
Exactly, I was gonna make a mausoleum.
You've tainted this room. Important, especially with the taint. Jesus.
I don't feel like that scene is if that shit were on If that shit were on Pornhub, man watches couple fuck.
Like, I always wondered that because, like they just decide to.
Oh, he's just smiling. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Not just Dr. Manhattan, like Ozymandias. I'm like, what would his reaction be? Because, like, clearly he walked in on them just asleep, buck naked,
Exactly, post-coitus.
But anyway, go back to what you were talking about.
Oh, yeah, okay, so if you haven't talked before, if you just to refresh, at the beginning, Lori and Dr. Manhattan are dating.
Yeah.
But at the then they kind of split up, and she started dating Dan and being with him, and they kind of end up together at the end. Now, of course, Dr. Manhattan is ready to get the fuck out of this galaxy. He's like, I'm gonna go and make my own fucking galaxy with blackjack and hookers.
In fact, forget the blackjack and the hookers.
Yeah, there it is. I found it.
Yeah.
The fuck is this face?
Oh my god.
Look at this
Wait,
shit.
Cole, be
This
careful.
motherfucker's smiling.
Okay, you covered it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I don't want you to...
Well, I mean, to be fair, you don't see anything.
But still, just be safe. But, no, here's the thing.
Wow, we're not making money.
That too.
So John, he actually kind of realized, okay, Laurie's happy, Dan's happy. I can accept this. That's what I think smile means. But to me, and then he walks on the fucking pool like Jesus, on water. You know why I want to see that in that scene? I want that song, Don't You Forget About Me, playing. He says Donnie giving thumbs up, and he just walks away with that song, Don't You.
And now Big Blue Jesus Man walks onto the ceiling. Let me take you higher.
You know that Creed where it's like that weird humanoid thing is grabbing whatever? That should be Dr. Manhattan. Just cover it blue. Color that fucking blue.
I'm so happy for Dan and Lori. Here, Dan.
You know what?
I made you an Xbox.
This is what y'all came for, is just us talking about this.
I mean,
That's even the weirdest thing we've talked about in the past.
I got there's so much we can
talk
talk.
about fucking Howard the
I
Duck.
like how there's so much that we can talk about. No, we're just gonna talk about how fucking Manhattan is watching these two fuck, and he's just smiling like a jackass.
Wait,
the whole time.
I'll just say, we're talking about...
He's over here smiling like the fool, and then he's gonna walk like Jesus. Like, bro, what is this flexing you're doing? What are you doing?
Can I also say, we're talking about this is high art and literature. This is one of the greatest critically acclaimed things, and we're just talking about their blue penises and cuckoldry and fucking. It's like, what the fuck are we doing to this?
Yeah.
But okay, so who wants to go first about Dr. Manhattan or?
Yeah, I will. So I think Dr. Manhattan's very interesting because I actually argue he's actually kind of the basis for a lot of the what if Superman was not heroic. I actually argue some of his backstory was used by Mark Millar for the idea behind Homelander. Being
really?
a creation of the government, and by doing so, not having ties to this Earth, so they both don't feel obligated to actually help.
They lack humanity.
Yeah.
Except for while Homelander's more psychopathic.
Yeah.
I would say Dr. Manhattan's is more just distant.
Yeah, distant because of the fact that, thanks to his powers, he sees all of time happening at once.
Right.
And
also,
he feels like there's no way for him to change it, even with knowing that sort of thing.
Well, also he sees because we said he's able to reconstruct things on a molecular, atomic, even quantum level, but he can also see the macroscopic, astronomical, level of the births of stars and universes and so to him he sees the biggest picture of all the universe that any person can.
Yeah, so he's like, why should I care about this tiny blue speck in the nigh infinite reach of space?
Right. It's you talk about life, but look at the thousands upon millions of years of
of death and war and pestilence.
But look at it's any better than the craters of Mars and the plateaus and the fog sea. To him, because basically he's no longer anthropomorphic in his or anthrocentric in his view of the universe.
I don't think he's into furries, Doug.
No, God fucking. You know what? I'm tired of this podcast. I'm tired of being tangled in these jokes of cuckoldry and simps. I'm leaving.
Fair.
But yeah.
But yeah,
we had a great fresh team. What happened? You fucking went to Edinburgh, dog. That's what happened. You quit.
First up, you gotta be
you quit.
Hey guys.
You transferred.
Exactly. Hey guys.
You
why don't we
transferred.
be friends like before and hang out?
You transferred.
You walk in the tunnel.
all right, someone go get me a map. I'm gonna light a cigarette up. I'm gonna burn it just to piss you off.
Is that what the comedian sounds like to you? Like a Chicago?
What happened to this department? What happened to the fucking fresh dream?
The dream. You're looking at it.
You're looking at
It
it.
came true.
First, I love that nobody's gonna fucking get this shit but us and people we work
Other
with.
fellow Walmart people understand.
You know,
Exactly.
But yeah, like
Which we explain-
that's what I think makes Dr. Manhattan so interesting is
Right.
like, especially when you get to his backstory, when they tell his backstory, it really shows just how tragic of a character he is, despite having this nigh unfathomable power. You know, the idea of like, what if a god were real, and because he is a god, he feels so out of place among mortals to the point where he feels that inaction is the only response. It's very interesting in a psychological sort of
Well,
way.
also in a mythical way too, because it kind of sounds like the idea of like, imagine like Hercules ascending to godhood, but
Yeah.
or even Jesus. Like imagine somebody who has like nigh infinite power, but to become like, but they have to be limited, kind of grounded to understand the human condition. Because if they're like Dharma Manhattan, who's like pretty much close to being a god, you lose that bit of humanity. You don't have a connection to the human realm. You're of a more higher realm that is grander and more like powerful, but more distant from the human condition.
Yeah. Your guys' thoughts?
You want to go first, Colin?
I love that Laurie says he tastes like a battery.
Okay, we're talking about fucking psychology and mythology and power politics and dynamics, and I'm done.
In all seriousness,
Yeah.
No, it's all good. I'm just joking.
I like Manhattan as a character because he almost provides like the opposite of Superman. He's Superman with all the power and with all the wisdom, but without the humanity.
Yeah.
almost.
Exactly,
Like he's
right.
lost his way with humanity. And you could almost argue that throughout the course of the book, it's almost like him trying to find his way back to it after it being lost to him for so long. I think that was definitely the entire point they went with, is that he's very much a Superman type character.
Yeah.
Some of it's just exemplified later when they did Doomsday Clock, and the whole fucking point is him trying to
Be like
be Superman.
Right. Oh, that we had to save for another episode because that we can talk.
I'd have to read
You
Doomsday
give
Clock.
me
I've
a
only read parts
30-minute
of it.
like dissertation of why it was so stupid.
Well, I wouldn't say it's okay.
And that's
I say
but
it's
so
stupid. It's just-
ridiculous. Ridiculous.
It's
Or-
totally different than the
yeah.
book.
Yo-
That and like my other problem with it is basically it's DC being like, well, we're out of fucking ideas. Let's finally do what everyone said would fucking be our end. Let's merge Watchmen and DC Comics together.
Make him into the hand that creates the fucking DC
No,
world.
there's so many things that are wrong with which nothing against you, Jeff. You do good stuff,
Jesus.
but damn.
By the way, I have a
But-
question. Okay, look at this. Why are you sitting here? It looks like I have was a chopper like mustache. Like a
Any
bike.
kind of a
Doug,
chopper.
real quick, just say the American Dream. You're looking at it.
The American Dream. You're looking at.
I can see Doug.
Come on.
I can see Doug cosplaying as the comedian. He can probably
I
pull
want
that.
to be the fucking comedian.
He can pull that off.
I'd rather be Billy Butcher. That's what we're going to do.
It makes you feel any better, Doug. I was
Who
told
would win
that
in a
many
fight,
a
the
time in
comedian or
college.
Billy Butcher?
Oh, that would be a
There's an idea.
America versus British, like alpha males. But
You can be the composite comedian butcher.
Jesus.
One half butcher, one.
From fucking.
Anyway,
The
continue with-
Kamuch.
Oh yeah, continue. Sorry.
continue with your
But
thoughts.
yeah, I really think that's part of the glue that holds this entire story together is that there's numerous times where he knows stuff is gonna fucking happen.
Yeah.
But he's almost doing the watcher role where he's like, I can't do anything. I must
Yeah.
not interfere. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
he talks about I grow tired of these people, these struggles. Maybe you should fucking do something, dude.
Yeah,
Instead
like-
of just sitting on your ass on the moon
But
doing
Colin,
nothing.
You don't understand. We're all puppets. I just can see the strings.
Oh my god, no, he's too busy trying to gangbang Lori for no fucking reason.
Wait, no, his clones are. He's trying to do science.
Which is like the most Reed Richards thing ever.
Oh, it would be.
It really
yes.
Like
is.
not nothing again. Like I don't think Reed would actually do it, but like you're like, no, honey, it's great. You know, when I'm too busy or too tired for you, this Reed clone who I've programmed with every page of the Kama Sutra in his mind to please you. I'm sure this will be great.
You know what? That sounds like from Venture Brothers. Who's what's the guy who is a parody of Richard?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
The
I can't
stretchy
think of
guy.
his- I can't think of the name, but I know who you're talking
He's basically
about.
a worse version of Reed. That would be actually a joke they would have done on that show.
But I think also Dr. Manhattan works for like the greatest. One of the bigger themes in the book is that the idea of inaction is is just as bad as like
Doing something.
doing the wrong action.
Right.
You know, like
It's still a choice.
yeah, like it's still a choice. Like just because you choose not to act doesn't mean you didn't make a choice here.
Are you thinking about the scene with him, the comedian in Vietnam?
Yeah, like that scene. which basically
It's nice
like
to see a reality where we won Vietnam.
Oh yeah. Oh
to the point where in Rorschach it's actually our 51st state.
yeah. No.
Yeah,
Just
which
to,
I'm like, damn.
so, just to clarify for those who don't know. So yeah, in this universe, they decide, hey, we got this guy who's a walking weapon. We got a comedian who's a psychopath mercenary. Send him to Vietnam during the war and kill all the Viet Cong and
Well,
pretty much.
I act like I love that they act like comedian like really helped the Vietnamese. Not the fact that he literally like Dr. Manhattan was a giant, was just blowing motherfuckers up.
He's like Godzilla in that shit.
Like he almost should have said in Vietnamese, "Welcome to the rice fields, motherfucker," as he's blowing these people away.
Can we get that? Remember that phone call with JFK I played you?
Oh, yeah.
Look on the paper. Did you see that guy next to the Dr. Manhattan? Did you see that silly bastard? He's crazy. Are they crazy over there?
Which but I actually love in Rorschach they imply that because Vietnam was our 51st state, they're the reason why Nixon got 4 terms is because they kept voting for him. It's like, no, you gave us democracy. Of course we're going to vote for you. We're going to turn the vote to you.
Well, I mean, is it implied it's more of a puppet like state? Not in
It probably is.
It probably is,
kinda
but like
I imagine like what the Soviet Union did with their
yeah.
I don't know. Once again, they don't go deep into that. Like some things, they don't go too deep into geopolitical stuff.
Well, then to be fair, Rorschach, the book is written in supposed to be in like our time period.
Oh, it's in Rorschach. Okay, I thought you
like
meant,
no, not like this. But
You meant
just because
yeah.
like Rorschach's like one of the few sequels to this that I actually think is kind of good.
right. Yeah.
Which
yeah,
says something because it's written by Tom King, and I normally think most of what he writes is shit.
right.
But like so that was just me kind of bringing up like an actual point here.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
also love that apparently in this universe, John made double-breasted suits popular because he's so fucking tall.
Oh, you mean like double? Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like when he's at that party with where he meets like old Night Owl and decides, hey, what if I make the electric car just for no reason?
Oh yeah, that pisses me off. I'm like, damn man.
Well, okay, the context is the original Night Owl. He's retiring. He's like, I want to just do my dream hobby of working on old cars. And John's like, I could make more lithium to make electric battery cars, and that would pretty much take over all gas power cars. He's like, yeah, that's good, John. Cool. Even though also it's implied that John's also the reason why he's quitting as a superhero, because pretty much John, he makes mass superheroes obsolete. Because like, okay, yeah, we can punch and do gymnastics and beat crime. No, this guy can pretty much stop like 60% of nukes coming to America.
Yeah.
Which that's also another thing. He's not all powerful. He has limits, but pretty
Although
much.
I did love the one quote when Ozymandias tries to disintegrate him with the same thing that turned him into Manhattan.
Oh yes.
He's like, I have walked on the surface of stars and have seen things happen at the microscopic level. You may be the smartest man on Earth, but you're no threat to me than the smartest termite on Earth. I'm like, holy fuck.
You just got fucking owned.
That's like my favorite line from Manhattan because I'm like, wow, you have been saving that.
Well, also that's him having personality. That's like him shit talking. So of course my thing. Also, we should mention that the superhero thing is not just an accidental thing. It's like, oh, it's a serious book with superheroes. Superhero mythos is part of the story.
Yeah.
Because Dr. Manhattan is supposed to represent the Silver Age, right? Of comics, right?
Yeah, because he's based on Captain Atom, and I want to say Captain Atom was a product of the Silver Age.
Not just that, but also the idea that
Which is the idea of atomic power.
Exactly, and science fiction where it's like, regular people just being super badass. No, we need like super sci-fi, futuristic, Supermen.
Because the Minutemen represent the golden age of heroes, where they were kind of more pulp characters.
Right.
Then, of course, the stuff in Vietnam kind of represents like the Silver Age too, but where this book is more supposed to be the Bronze Age,
right?
Where like
it's more social commentary.
Social commentary. The heroes are a little grayer area.
Well, except for one. Well, I mean, he is, but we'll get to him later.
Also, I actually really love Manhattan's origin story.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
I love where we actually get to see like his whole like from the moment he's a child where he wants to be a clockmaker,
right?
Which I think also really sets the idea of what John wants to be, which is a clockmaker deity. The idea of like a clockmaker like this clockmaker god
right
creates the universe, and he simply watches it because he's got it working. It's self-sufficient, sustaining, and he only acts when the clock breaks.
Right, and that of course is actually more of reference to because. Also, it gets into the idea of quantum physics. Before quantum physics, there was Newtonian physics, which was, Isaac Newton and the Enlightenment, and that before the early 1900s. The idea that basically the universe works like clockwork. It has absolute laws, certain relationships, causality. Everything is planned as it is. And of course, people like, deism, the idea that it's not the Christian God, but there is a God, but he works like, as a watchmaker. He just, intelligent design makes everything.
Yeah.
So I think that is like, he's supposed to represent the rift of that idea when quantum physics and the nuclear bomb comes by.
Yeah, and like, and his story is so sad because I always feel bad that he doesn't end up with
Jane,
like, because that story is so sad.
Yeah.
Like he gets this happiness and then he gets stuck in that quantum chamber. It completely disintegrates him, and then he spends like a year slowly putting himself back together in the most horrific ways possible. Like, no wonder he lost his fucking humanity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then he still tries to have a relationship, but because he can see into the future, he can't do nothing about it. It's like it tortures his,
Yeah, I'm sad that your tits are gonna get real saggy later. So
he doesn't.
I'm gonna go for
that.
the 16-year-old.
Yeah.
It's okay because I technically don't age and I exist.
Well,
I'm like,
that's not
No,
elite.
thank you, Tim.
well,
Yeah.
to quote Lori's mom, yeah, we didn't have to bang the H-bomb, honey.
Right.
We didn't have to keep him laid, which I'm like,
Jesus.
I guess next we'll talk about the comedian.
Sorry. Yeah, it's all good. So, I see. So I go for a while, and you guys just have this back and forth between you two. All right.
Well, Doug, we've already been going for an hour. We're trying to
All right,
roll
no.
this.
Okay, fine.
So let's go into the comedian since
Yeah, all right,
like
yeah.
his death, that and comedian will be.
We can always have a
And
part.
also,
We can always have a part two.
Actually,
with this, too.
also, I can put what I may have with Dan, so it's all good. Let's keep going.
Okay, so the comedian,
Oh, yeah.
Edward. Oh shit, I forget his
Blake.
name, but basically,
Yeah, Edward Blake.
Edward Blake. Yeah,
an
thank you.
American hero.
Yeah.
An American. One of the original Minutemen, and I really.
He destroys the crime busters. He
Yeah.
only destroys the
But
crime busters.
I find him so interesting just because he's the whole idea of like the comedian is that he sees the world as like this sick, demented joke.
Kind of like a Joker, but not.
Yeah,
as-
like basically because he's like, there's no point in anything we do, so I dress myself like that to represent the fact that there is. He's very much a nihilist,
Oh yeah, no, I would say definitely a nihilist.
and like and his death kind of cements that idea that like there is a kind of pointlessness to this, but like how you perceive the joke is really what determines you.
Well,
sort
I mean,
of
yeah,
like.
because he was at the end of the stuff. He was the butt of the joke, and actually, even before that, when he discovers the horrible secret with Ozymandias' plan, he realizes, oh, I thought I was the one laughing. Really, I'm the one being laughed at by the universe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you have any more to say about?
I will admit I don't approve of anything he does in this story.
No.
For the record, but I do find him so fascinating just because of like the fact we only see him in flashbacks.
Yeah,
And
he's
you only see so much of him, which makes him very interesting. Like how much of this is him like, especially the fact that he's Laurie's father,
which is revealed later.
which is revealed like. How much of that is driven from him just seeing all the horrible things he's done because he lived through World War II,
right?
Vietnam. Yeah, like just all these horrible atrocities.
Nicaragua, like that's
Nicaragua.
usually the Reagan, anti-communist
Killed
stuff.
JFK.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the book kind of makes it nebulous, unlike the movie.
But,
But,
I mean,
to be fair, I wouldn't put it past him.
That's
I
what I'm
mean,
saying.
hold on.
I'm trying to think. Also, he.
I mean,
okay, yeah.
I mean, yeah,
I mean, that's pretty.
On the nose.
That's pretty on the nose.
It's certainly better than before Watchmen, where it's implied not only did he kill JFK, he faked Marilyn Monroe's suicide and killed her too.
Right. Well, also that's another thing too is that he's not just anonymous for himself. He's willing to sell his bid to the highest bidder, the U.S. government.
And, but like particularly the idea that like he decided that he would have a child with Laurie's mother, and like the idea that like that was like the one good thing he wanted, and even then he's still not allowed to see her. It really makes him for a very interesting, tragic character, despite being like a psychopath.
I mean, I think, I would say you're not supposed to sympathize him or approve what he does.
Oh, absolutely.
But as a character study, it's very interesting. And also, he kind of like haunts. He dies early. Actually, that's the first thing in the book. He dies.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like his ghost is haunting the book as you go back with these flashbacks.
Particularly Rorschach.
Right. Exactly.
Your thoughts, Colton, on the comedian?
I think you really covered the best of it. You know, he's a very fascinating character just because he's not a sympathetic one. But it's definitely still like a tragic story.
Yeah. Particularly that scene when Moloch tells him about how the comedian visited him before he died, and like you can tell he's drunk and he's like sobbing and like he's like, what's the joke? Like
he's
what's
breaking down. Like
breaking down.
He's actually
like,
for like the first time. I would say the other time was when Laurie, when he met her as a 16-year-old, after the breakup of the Crime Busters, she said he looked sad as they were driving away after her mother takes him away because, her mother doesn't want him, them meet each other. That's the only time. But other than that thing with Moloch when he's telling you like what's happening and breaking down, that's a comedian showing his weakness for the first time.
Yeah.
Like other than this like mask of or this shield of nihilism, there is somebody who still feels pain.
Although I do have to admit, I don't understand the choice of the Gimp mask when he's in the 80s. That shit's really fucking weird.
Yeah, that's.
That or the fact that they gave him non-lethal rounds during that riot. I'm like, I don't really feel like Nixon would have been like, no, I want him to use non-lethal rounds. No, we got to get rid of these hippies. We gotta send them to hell.
Got you in like Cambodia.
I remember my body. It was fat and riddled with phlebitis. A good Republican body. Jesus Christ.
My only thing, I mean, you guys pretty much said, and I'm not going to go too much into it, but my only question is, what do you think he really meant by when Night Owl asked during that protest, like them quoting the riot, what happened to the American dream? You're looking at. What do you think the comedian meant by that? Like, do you think that in the sense that
the American dream is an idolized concept that's links to reality or to disguised brutality?
So it's a myth.
Like basically, it came true.
Which, damn, that was very philosophical of me, I guess.
Yeah.
No, it really was.
Well, then, like, you can even argue it's like, it did come true. And then we let it rot. And this is the true dream, is that we watch as, we let fear and hatred, like...
And despair
turn us to we want safety. And we are willing to shoot and maim and hurt each other to get that safety.
And also, another thing that's interesting, like, of course, that was in the 70s when he said it, but throughout the book, what takes place in 1985, you can just feel, like, the kind of, like, this gritty, like, I don't want to say dirty, but just, like, I would say, this gritty, like, reality of, like, especially New York City at that time.
Yeah, because, like, that is what they were trying to capture, is how run down and decrepit and kind of shitty New York was at that time.
Right, exactly.
Very much like another book we did, Batman Year One, which Gotham City is based on 80s New York.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
I kind of want to save Rorschach for last. So let's move on to Laurie.
Okay, yeah,
Silk
that's
Spectre
fine.
2.
Laurie is actually my favorite.
Okay, so why don't you lead then?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just gonna be honest. I'm in a very shallow way. I like female characters. I guess it was like growing up, I was always surrounded, like fiction-wise, by like very strong male characters. And because the era we grew up in, like you guys can definitely attest this. We didn't see a lot of strong female characters. In
were
the in terms of stuff that was accessible to us.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, for male, like action shows or video games, like they were more like for every Laura Croft, you had like some other I don't know
You had like 7 Barbies.
Duke Nukem. I'm just saying. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But so I guess like as I've gotten older, I've kind of always turned towards like stronger female leads because like it's just more interesting to me.
I would say that's shallow. I think that's actually pretty poignant. Like that's a pretty good reason.
I mean, it's not like you saw Silk Spectre and you're like, Silk Spectre.
Yeah. Ooh, my other Mary Jane.
Yeah.
Oh my god. But yeah, and I really think she and Night Owl are the two very, very pretty much the most likable characters in the entire piece.
I agree. I prefer.
Like a lot of people like to say they're all anti-heroes.
They're also probably the most relatable.
Yeah.
Like the most realistic down there.
Yeah, the most realistic, and probably the most human characters in the cast.
Yeah.
Like, whereas like some have lost their way with their humanity, like Manhattan's lost touch with it. Rorschach's gone deeper and deeper off the edge into the abyss. Ozymandias like sees himself above everyone.
Yeah.
Night Owl and Laurie are very much just on the ground level.
Exactly. No, I agree. I think they're.
It's kind of a shame that Laurie doesn't get a lot of stuff to do in the book. Like I feel like of the main cast, she gets kind of put to the side a lot, just because they don't want to reveal like her birth, her father too quick. But I do find her the most interesting, just because like I think like her and Dan both represent the whole idea of like they want to go back to a time where like, you know, they fought crime, they stopped the bad guy, they put him in jail.
It's nostalgia. Actually, nostalgia.
Yeah, like they like a simpler time before like nuclear Armageddon wasn't constantly over their heads. You know, and Laurie especially, because like she wants to go to a time where like where her mother, she didn't resent her mother as much, but at the same time like she knows that like she's always kind of resented her mother.
Right.
You know, and that and the other, I think, you know, the fact that like she's been with Manhattan so long. Like she misses humanity, basically,
the intimacy,
like, which is why like I think it hits her the worst when she sees like all the stuff that we do, you know, like that constant running thing where like every time Manhattan teleports her she pukes, like the last time she actually doesn't puke, and then she does finally when she sees what happened in New York. And I think that, you know, like. It's very interesting how like it starts with her being in a relationship with this god, and then she finally ends it with being with this mortal who finally pulls her back to like the reality of the situation, sort of thing.
Right, exactly.
Because even when she starts back up as Silk Spectre with Night Owl, like she's doing it like, I wouldn't say for bad reasons, but she's doing it for shallow reasons where it's like, no, I want to just let's
to get kicks.
Yeah, to get kicks, and also, you know, maybe if you go rescue some people, we'll get our engine, you get your motor running, and we could bang an Archie.
Oh, I guess like okay, and of course when they're ready to do that, Archie just rocks up straight vertically in the air. It's like subtle.
Well, never mind the fact that it ends with Archie's flamethrower going off.
But yeah, actually, one thing you said about the human thing, like you guys were saying about the human connect. Well, that's why Dr. Manhattan, if not love, then really appreciates Laurie, because she is like his only connection to humanity. And it's of course her that helps him convince to help humanity after, you know, he goes to Mars and wants to stay away from it. I agree with it's weird because in a way she does like actually kick a lot of ass. Like she's pretty like, you know, for male by herself. She, you know, she's a very strong female role. But in terms of story, she doesn't have as much. The closest we got was her trying to kill Ozymandias at the
with
end.
the gun.
But even though of course, you know, it doesn't work out, but. Other than that, I can see what you're saying. Like, it is kind of, I would like to see her more do that. But I would say definitely my top three. Like,
I also give more props for not dressing her in like a ludicrously skimpy outfit.
No,
like, I mean her outfit is a little skimpy, but like
it's
like the fact that like she doesn't have like
the one in the movie is a lot more skimpier than the one that's actually in the book.
Like I at least appreciate that, because like she's based on a very skimpy Golden Age character,
right?
Who basically wore like a 2-piece bikini and a cape, basically.
Right.
So like I actually admire his restraint. Although I actually kind of think he kind of merged her with Black Canary, considering her mother was the original Silk Spectre. Much like how like the original origin was with her for like how Black Canary was on the JSA, and then in the modern age her daughter became the Black Canary most people know.
Right. Okay, I didn't know that.
Also, as a whole, I really just like her relationship with Night Owl, because
I love that.
Like, it's probably the most wholesome, because the two of them just want connection and comfort. You know, like in these really fucked up times that they're living in.
Yeah, that's what I really appreciate her with Night Owl, because I mean, of course, Dan, while yes, he is a bit, you know, insecure and kind of doesn't really exude, or he doesn't play out that, you know, charisma that he later, you know, shows off later as they get more together. But even so, he at least, you know, gives what she really needs, which is that human intimacy, that human connection, that human, you know, touch, really, that with John she could never have because he was so distant. But Dan, he's like, oh, I want, I'll make sure you're safe. I'll help you, take care of what you need. Talk to me about anything. It's a very realistic relationship that I really think it's also very healthy too, for the most part.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like to say that their relationship's really kind of fucked up because like they're just doing it because of out of nostalgia for like a simpler time. But I'm like, I mean, there's worse relationships in comics.
Yeah,
Then,
there's
at
really-
the end,
there's a
though,
lot
doesn't it
worse
kind
ones.
of? Oh yeah, but at the end, does it kind of apply to learn to adapt? Like they still can retain that desire while adapting to modern.
Yeah, they wear blonde wings, and Night Owl's gonna build her a sweet fucking gun.
Which I'm not gonna lie.
Actually, I really love that interaction. She's like, "I want a gun this time," and he's
No,
like,
that's,
"No."
wait, she's the female Punisher.
Actually, I think it's kind of implied she wants to become like the comedian, or like something closer to the comedian.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
I also really appreciate her relationship with her mom.
Yeah.
Like she more gets annoyed at the fact that like her mother like
Had like all these different facets of her life planned out for her.
yeah.
Kind of like a helicopter mom. Like
Yeah.
Before
Although
that
to be
was
fair to like the first Still Spectre, I think it's more because she didn't want Lori to be like as kind of without a rudder to her ship like she is after like she became like after she basically gave up everything to raise Lori, even though that like to her Lori was the best thing that ever happened to her. Like it's really interesting because like for as much as like her mom is kind of like a bit of a cloud cuckoo lander, to quote TV tropes, you can tell she did it because she loved her daughter, and it was because like she's the one who saw that like even as sick as the comedian was, he gave me you.
And that's of course, yeah, and sorry, it's kind of going back with Dr. Manhattan, like the whole thing of like, so Dr. Manhattan's like talking about, oh, humans are insignificant in the long term, blah blah blah. He then, of course, I think Laurie confuses like, oh, you're always talking about like thermodynamics, whatever. He's like, miracles. He's like, wait, no, quantum miracles. He's like, wait, quantum? You mean thermo? And then, of course, as she's telling her story about realizing who her dad is, he's like, no, wait, thermodynamic miracles. The fact that human life, despite all the minuscule space it takes up, it's a miracle you exist. Like out of the millions of sperms and eggs that could have happened, you were the one who were able to exist. So I think that was kind of like of course a great thing for the story, but also kind of a really good message at the end where she forgives her mother and like even life's complicated and we had whatever, but I appreciate you and love you for helping me exist as I am.
Yeah, like I said, their story is very fascinating, and I do wish we could have explored a little bit more of their relationship just because it was so fascinating, but it really moves you when you read through the story and like you see how broken like Laurie's mom truly is at the end, because for all of the the memorabilia she had, which one of them is really fucked up, where like they send her like this comic from like Mexico.
Oh, the Tijuana comics?
The Tijuana comics, which is based on like the Wonder Woman Tijuana comics that happened during World War II. Like it really shows like for all her bravado and stuff, she really is truly alone. Yeah. Any final thoughts on Silk Spectre before we move on?
No, I'm good.
Let's move on to Night Owl, just because we've basically talked about him already. Night Owl and Rorschach are probably my favorite characters in this book. Night Owl probably more of a second, mostly because I love the fact that he's probably the most realistic of like a gadget hero. Like just because of the fact that like he knows that like he's not as athletic as the first Night Owl, so he compensates that with having all these gadgets and tools. And honestly, probably the most decent character in the book, just because like he actually did it because he did it because he's
just a normal dude.
He's just a normal dude who wants to do the right thing.
Well, also he was very influenced by because he names
Archimedes after the sword, the Disney's The Sword and the Stone.
But he also read like the actual like Arthurian legends, where of course that's the whole thing about chivalry, of knights saving people in distress and being these beacons of nobility, of goodness. Like he also wants to capture that as well and live that.
I like him because he represents the idealism of like the old age of comics, where like a hero with gadgets can fight the bad guy, overcome the odds, and eventually save the day. And it really shows, like, as the story goes on, how much how dark and fucked up the worlds became, how much the ideologies that Dan holds on to brings him no comfort throughout the book.
Right.
Like the only but eventually he like sees that, and like while he does try to do the right thing, you can tell very much how
Shaken?
broken down especially when he gets the revelation of what Ozymandias has done.
Right.
He straight up was like, no, we can't tell anyone what happened, because like there's like we finally managed to like save the day, and like, but like if they find out we lied,
Right.
it will undo everything that has happened here.
Well, even then, like I remember he's like, can any men or humans make this moral decision? Like, even though he does come to that realization, he's also like, am I even really able to comprehend or even deal with this dilemma? Of that scale. So yeah.
And like you said, he very much represents how small we are in comparison to Dr. Manhattan.
Right. Well, the first time that's what happened to him.
Yeah. Like it very much shows that like if real like mass costume crusaders existed alongside the superhero, like the true superheroes, like what would probably really happen would be like, I mean, you guys are so powerful. What do you truly need me for? Like, yeah, I stop a couple of like bank robbers or some gangbangers or like a purse snatcher, but at the end of the day, what real good does that do?
He's like in that Robot Chicken skit with the Ninja Turtles, like, Donatello, what do I do? You do machines.
Yeah, it's something like that kind of.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Dan Colton?
I really like him. Like we talked about earlier, he's definitely probably the most human of the characters alongside Laurie. And I really think that as a true protagonist of the book, I think he works really, really well.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's a part of everybody that can relate to that, where there's been parts of our lives where we're at some place and we wish we weren't. You know, we kind of long for what was in the past, but we can't really recapture it, but we still try. It's a futile struggle to do it. And I think on a deep, really grounded level, we all do know that, but we still make attempts to chase the high of the past.
Right.
Yeah,
even if it's not exactly what we should be doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Not only that, I think it also shows that, sometimes chasing that fantasy for a little bit can bring you good things. Like, he ends up with Laurie, and they end up actually very happy together. Also, kind of, I think that's also what Manhattan Smile really is at the end, where it's like,
I agree. Yeah.
like despite everything shitty and fucked up that's happened in this book, these two people are happy, and that's good enough.
Exactly.
Like, it's why he decides to leave, because it's like, this is good enough, but I'm going to go somewhere else because I want to try and do something better where I don't have all this baggage holding me back.
Exactly.
And then the 2019 show comes out, and Laurie shows up, but there's no Night Owl for some fucking reason.
listen,
I don't know anything
We're
about
not
the
gonna
show.
ever review the fucking show because I don't care what anybody says. The show sucks complete dick.
No, that's
Yeah.
as someone who's
heard
never
it,
seen it,
yeah.
I have no want to see it.
There's parts of it that I like, and it brought attention to some historical events that weren't well known. But overall, just as a Watchmen story, it's not very fucking good.
Yeah, especially because like the cast that you want to see barely shows up in it. That's like the biggest
What?
problem with it.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
Yeah, it's not very good.
Um,
Like I said, purely as a Watchmen story, it's not very good. If it wasn't a Watchmen story, it'd be pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
But as a Watchmen sequel, it's not fucking
Yeah,
good.
it's also
like,
a lot like
it's like Resident Evil 4 with you, right?
Yeah.
Resident Evil 4 to you is a good game. It's not a good Resident Evil game.
Yeah.
well, it's also kind of like the awful prologue books they made like a decade ago called Before Watchmen, that tried to explain these characters. And they did one of the things that I hated, where it turns out, Dan actually grew up in a broken home, and his dad was like, which I'm like, but that kind of like, for me, it kind of like ruins the character a little bit, because I'm like, so then now he's doing it because he's like, I don't want to be a victim, and it's like, it's weird. Like, I like the idea that like, because we didn't know Dan, like he was the most average of the group.
Right, exactly.
Like I don't like I assume he grew up in a fairly okay home.
Well, I mean, he says that father's a banker, was pretty stable when he inherited a lot of money. When they die, I guess, relatively young.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Batman story a bit, but not as tragic.
Yeah, where it's like
Actually,
he lived okay. Like he was he's supposed to be like the most put together of the group, so that when like shit gets real bad, it's like, fuck, what do I do?
Exactly.
Like
He's the leader of the group. He likes to party down. Seriously? Okay.
I still love that scene in the movie where he's like, "No!"
Oh, yeah.
No! I'm like, stop, man.
What's the thing that happened to
He's
Book?
not Khan. Fuck off. He's not
No.
Kirk. Get out of here with
Exactly.
Speaking of,
Oh, wait. Just one last thing about Dan. So, okay, I'll make it quick. So, first off, I agree. Actually, I'll say I really do. I felt like, oh my God, I'm night owl for a lot of times in my life. But, okay, so I think he and John are a great pairing, or at least a contrast. John has all the power of a god pretty much, but he feels that he can't do anything because fate's already determined, or the future's already is set. So he's passively doing, like for example, in Vietnam, he doesn't do anything with like saving that woman from being shot by the comedian because to him, it's already been said. He can't do anything about it. However, Dan doesn't. He's limited. He has gadgets. He doesn't have that power. But okay, because after he has this dream where he and Lori are making out, making love, but then they get destroyed by a nuclear bomb. He's like, "Oh, I'm mortal. I'm deaf, and I'm powerless against this nuclear holocaust. But I have to do something. I have to make a difference." So even though he doesn't have as much power, he has that will to change the world. So I think that they're a great contrast, and that's why I think as you said, that makes him a better true protagonist of the story. He's the one who will actually change and develop, unlike John, who he does, but not as drastically. So yeah.
And I think we'll move on to Ozymandias because I really want to save Rorschach for last because he's like the narration of the book.
And then I think once we do Rorschach, I think we need to try to wrap up. There's definitely gonna be a part 2 to this because I think there's so much we can dissect with this.
Oh, definitely.
That I think even trying to dive into the plot really deserves its own video.
I mean, we could probably do a part 3 eventually when we watch the movie.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Ozymandias is probably the hardest to talk about because there's so little we know about him in this book.
But I think that actually works exactly to the point I brought up earlier, where he considers himself aloof.
Yeah.
Right.
About everything, like he's more intelligent. He
considers himself a pharaoh.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
He considers himself above everybody. So I almost think that we don't see a lot about him. We don't know a lot about him. Actually, really works to that effect because it's exactly like he's a god. We don't know a whole lot about him because
he doesn't want you to.
We are lesser men in his eyes.
Exactly. And can I actually tell you a theory or something I noticed in the in his flashbacks? Because all these characters have flashbacks, or we learn more about their backstory. Other, I guess, some comedian, but with him, when he's telling his story to his servants, who, did he kill them or poison them to be stunned? Because
I'm pretty sure he killed him.
I'm pretty sure he killed them.
But
If not, he left them to die in the snow.
that's what I'm saying. Because he's whatever. So, but as he's giving his his backstory, what we see of him as he's describing his life, because he talks about how he grew up in a rich family or a pretty well-off family, but they die young, and he wants to prove to the world that he's the most capable, intelligent, strongest man, willpower, whatever. We see him with only his back facing us. We don't see his face. We don't see even it's shadowed too as a silhouette. So I think, Colin, as you're saying, exactly, we're not seeing a human person, a personality, a person.
We're seeing a representation of a god,
or even I would say the shadow of a god. Bring the Jungian psychology. We see this is the shadow. He's not willing to admit he has any flaws or any stains. He believes himself to be the best human being in the world, especially in a condescending way, because he is supposed to be very progressive and forward-thinking and considerate. He's supposed to be the nicest guy in the world, even though he's also a billionaire.
Yeah, he's basically Lex Luthor. If Lex Luthor actually believed the facade that he's actually a good person.
Exactly, but it's all for self-grandiorization. It's ego. It's all about his ego, not about real.
Well, even then, look at the scene where he's talking to Night Owl while Rorschach's trying to fight him. He's easily dispatching Rorschach's attacks. Well, barely even breaking a beat with the conversation. Fighting Rorschach is to him is swatting a fly.
Exactly, or a child that you're just shooting away.
Also, I've always argued I know they try to imply that he's just really, really trained. I'm sorry, I assume he used whatever gene modification stuff he used to create the
that would
alien.
Make more sense.
That he is clearly genetically modified himself. There's no way because he can literally catch bullets.
Right.
Even Steve Rogers, Captain America, who is imbued with a super soldier serum, can't catch bullets.
Right.
That's why he got a shield.
I would say that's one of the plot holes I have with the thing is like they don't explain how he really does it.
To be fair, I think that's I
think
think
it's implied that he's so.
it's just
like,
implied that like
but
especially
even then it's like come on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's multiple times even people like imply like there's no way he can be truly human given like the feats of skill that he's done, and it wouldn't make sense to me that he would like because he probably does feel a bit inferior to John, so
Yeah,
he probably did
definitely.
modify himself to be like this is like the only way I can kind of even the field.
And,
Despite the fact that there's no way of evening the field unless you make yourself Dr. Manhattan.
And okay, this I'm going to ask you guys right now because I did plan on doing this, but since you want to do a part 2 with the actual plot, do you want me to give my whole thing of my ethical or my philosophical dissection of his ethics, because about the ending of what's the moral choice of the ending, or do you want to say?
I think saving that for the
But if you
morality of the ending, because I definitely think we could dive into that really, really in depth.
Yeah, but if you
Right.
want to give
and I
maybe like
definitely
just
think it deserves its own
Well,
just
video.
like kind of like if you can kind of like
I'll say
summarize
give
it.
us the cliff notes.
Okay, well here's my thing, because once again, philosophy minor, gotta use that minor for something.
I mean, I whipped the history degree out all the fucking
Oh,
time.
exactly. So of course, I actually took a bunch of ethics class and meaning of life class, where we talk about different. Well, actually, no, I did actually take an ethics 101 class actually, and we talk about norms of ethics, which is what is right and wrong, and of course, how do you evaluate that? My main thing is this: at the end, at the very end, when you learn what is going on and learn the aftermath of what happened, there's two positions philosophically that you have to choose as the reader, as the characters choose. There is what I would say Ozymandias, the utilitarian position, where is it's the most people the right thing to do is what makes the most people happy. It's like what Spock says: the needs of the many is more important than the needs of the one or few. While on the other hand, you have deontology, which is I would say Rorschach, where it doesn't matter what the consequence is. The ends don't justify the means. What is right, and what's wrong is wrong in terms of action and rules. So that's my thing of observing that. If we don't want to do the whole thing right now, I would just say this, because the whole thing with Ozymandias' idea is he's gonna fake this attack on New York with a genetic monster he made on an island.
Yeah, to fake a Mars invasion of space aliens.
Exactly, but in the process, it kills half of New York City, along with mentally disturbing a great amount of people. And
Well, that's because the alien actually, when it dies, it gives off this psychic pulse that actually causes hallucinations
terrors.
and shit.
Exactly. So, but he believes that by doing this, he can stop the Cold War, stop the start of World War III. Because after Manhattan leaves the Earth, Russia invades Afghanistan, invades I think Pakistan as well, and there's tensions that there's gonna be a war. And actually, even Nixon, he's ready to use the suitcase with the bomb codes.
Yeah.
So
nuclear football.
Yeah, which I actually give them credit for doing the nuclear football instead of just being like a fucking button like a lot
exactly, I do actually. Yeah, exactly. So my thing is that, so he believes that because this will make the best situation in the world peace, people are saved, no nuclear holocaust. That sacrifice of those people in New York was worth it. Now, of course, we can talk more about whether or not it's right in the next video, but his thing is it's calculative. It's not about really the emotional or the humanity of it. It's this is mathematically the best thing to do.
Well, and how much is it?
Really,
how much is it really him wanting to save the world, and how much is it him being like, I did it.
Yes,
I made
exactly.
peace.
Well, his whole thing is about he wants to outdo Alexander and outdo Ramses II, because that's what Ozymandias is a reference to, the Greek name for Ramses II, the great pharaoh who pacified all countries and made supposedly peace in the region.
Yeah.
And it's as you said, this ain't about conquering. This ain't about making the world a better place. It's about conquering the impossible. Actually, I do wonder if he's kind of Nietzschean in that sense, but that's a whole. Once again, that's a whole different.
We're gonna dive into this.
Yeah. So, but
waist deep.
But in my terms of the character, yeah, he's a megalomaniac.
Like Adam West at the orgy.
Oh yeah. Well, Adam West, man, there's no way he wasn't down to the knees and that shit.
What, doing the Batusi sideways?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But okay,
man was drowning in it.
So sorry about once again, I'll try to explain more.
Well, no, it's really interesting. That's why I'm saying I really want to have that be a different video.
Because
right
now
I want to hear more of it in depth.
But I think to do justice to that, we have to actually talk what happens at the end, in deep depth.
So that's why I'm saying we'll do a part 2 where we dive into this.
Keep an eye on that, people. So that's my main thing about Ozymandias there.
So finally, which brings us to the last character, and basically the
poster
narrator
child for Reddit incels everywhere.
Exactly.
Rorschach. Now I'll be honest, he's probably my favorite character. As much as like I don't agree to everything he does. I just find him very fascinating.
Yeah, exactly.
The idea where he basically takes the Ayn Rand philosophy of black and white, everything's black and white, to the point where he wears it on his fucking face.
Well, I mean, not to interrupt you, but because I know what you're saying, because that's the character he's based off. The question or what's the other character?
The A is what he was called, but
because they are based on like Ditko's like objectivist beliefs, and yet it has like because also along with the right or wrong, there's also the self egoism.
I read a page of Ayn Rand one year. I yelled at a bunch of protesters. I feel so ashamed.
Exactly.
That's something Spider-Man actually did in the comics when Ditko wrote. He's like, nah, Spider-Man would yell at these hippies to get a job.
These pinkos.
Which I'm like, I don't think that's. And even Stan was like, Steve, maybe not make this character an asshole. I don't do those kind of characters.
So I mean, I know you're saying like in terms of black and white ethics, and that of course why I think it's more deontology with ethics. The only thing is I don't know if it's really objectivist. I think I'll get more into it later. I think it's more existential, like
I mean that's fair. I don't know all of Ditko's beliefs or how that actually works. I just know mostly what Rorschach is based on, the idea of objectionism
or at least the idea that there is a absolute right or wrong. Or that
like,
you have to make a right or wrong. I would say there is no intrinsic right or wrong, but whether you make right or wrong, you gotta be uncompromised. You gotta be willing to. You have to have integrity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly.
To be fair, I just find him so interesting, just because especially because of the fact that most of the book is read from his perspective. Like even the Tales of the Black Frigate is kind of implied to be that's what he is reading the book. Kind of implying that where he gets his drive for doing what he's doing, even if it means he will look like a monster doing so. Also, I think he kind of misses the whole point of this dude actually crazy and he killed people for no good fucking reason.
Well, then, of course, he eventually leads himself to damnation.
Yeah. But, he's so interesting because, you do see his descent into his madness, when he probably started out, Rorschach and Kovac were two separate things. Rorschach was just a disguise he wore. And, then we get to the part where, he tries to rescue this little girl, and she got murdered by this guy and chopped up and fed to his dogs.
Yeah.
And you see where Rorschach was truly born as a character.
Well, even, when he sees the outside and finds out what's happening, it has, a red filter on that panel, realizing this is the breaking point.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, that scene is chilling to me when I read it. It's probably my favorite part of the book where you really see just how much Rorschach believes in what he does. When he tells the psychiatrist, fate didn't murder that little girl and destiny didn't chop her into pieces and feed the dogs. We did that. People did that. And it made him see just what he would have to do.
Well, that's why at the end it ends with a quote, because each chapter of Watchmen there's an ending of either a literary figure or a song quote from Bob Dylan or even Elvis Costello, which was pretty cool. But point is that in that one, at the end of that one, it was Nietzsche's, of course, don't beware of fighting monsters lest you become one. And of course, when you stare in the abyss stares back to you. So that's what happened to Rorschach. He saw so much the darkness of fighting, crime and trying to fight evil. It transformed him into it transformed Kovac into Rorschach.
And it's really so sad because there's a few moments where I think Night Owl almost gets through to Rorschach to be like, hey, could you not?
Right.
But Rorschach is so far gone that it's just fleeting moments of a happiness for Rorschach. I also really like the idea of we see just how much he does to try and create this mystique around the character to the point where he wears inserts in his shoes to make himself look taller. the fact that like he completely goes off the grid to make himself as mysterious as possible.
He has multiple places to hide his outfit.
Yeah, like it really shows just how much, you know, it's good to be driven by like your ideals, but how much it can also destroy you.
Well, he sacrifices himself as a human for this figure, a symbol, or a persona.
Yeah, this persona. They're like, you know, when the police catch him and they rip the mask off, you know, in that scene where he's like, my face! Give me back my face! We're like, even the mask is technically, like, it, in my opinion, it's kind of like, what if Batman completely went off the reservation?
Right.
Like, I know it's not mentally healthy to dress up like a bat and wage war on criminals. Also, sorry. But, like, the idea that, like, Bruce became so consumed with that mask to the point where he completely gave up being Bruce Wayne. That sort of idea.
Yeah.
And, like, just seeing how much, like...
Oh, like Azrael.
Yeah,
like,
like,
Azrael was Batman.
Yeah, like Azrael's... Actually, yeah, that's a good point, Colton. Thank you.
Also, I mean, we also talked about this with the. I don't think I. No, I wasn't when you guys did the No Way Home of the new Spider-Man one. Well, it's what we talk about Andrew Garfield though with his Spider-Man when of course he's so when he is into when he gets from the multiverse to the MC Spider-Man's universe.
How he shows up in the costume, whereas
Right,
Tobey's
exactly.
Spider-Man shows up in just street clothes.
And then of course he talks about like he is
Stop pulling his punches.
and that he's more out in the streets more.
How he has
like,
no time for Peter Parker.
Exactly. So that's kind of their representation of how the mask overtakes you instead of it being like as a part of your crime fighting persona.
That, and I wouldn't lie if I didn't enjoy some of his really badass moments in this, like when he after he kills that one prison dude and he's like,
Oh yeah.
You all seem to think that you're locked in here with me, or I'm locked in here with all of you. You're all locked in here with me. I'm like,
that was pretty badass. Not
See,
gonna lie.
I have a question though. Do you hear him talk like that? Ask when he's in prison with like him as.
Oh,
not-
absolutely.
When he gets mad, I can
Oh,
hear
when
that.
mad.
Yeah,
when he's just talking like.
Oh no, he never takes the voice he does for Rorschach off.
That's what I'm
That is
saying.
his voice.
Oh really?
Like
See,
because that's actually something the Snyder film I actually think gets really right. Like the thing they get the most right is Rorschach, in the fact that he, even when he's lost his costume, he still talks like that.
Okay.
Like he's doing like a bad Clint Eastwood impression.
See, my thing was because in the speech bubble when he's talking as Rorschach, it's like squiggly and kind of more edgy.
Yeah.
When he's talking as him without the mask, it's kind of more normal. So I assume he talked more of a stoic way outside the mask, but when he puts the mask on, he talks, the Rorschach. Right? That's my impression.
Well, I think that a little bit is also because when we do see him like talking normal, it's when he's talking with Dan.
Yeah.
And Dan's like one of the few people he lets show that, hey, I'm actually a human under here.
Exactly.
Like, I honestly, unless it's Dan, I don't think he stops doing the voice. I straight up think that is the voice he does.
I can see that.
That's actually why when you see him before it's revealed that picket sign dude, like, the end is nigh dot, is Rorschach, he doesn't talk. Like, I straight up don't think he talks unless he's wearing the mask.
Well, except for that one thing he's asking for new frontiersman from the vendor. But even then, I imagine he still has like that, maybe a slighter version of that, maybe.
I mean, possibly. But like I said, I honestly don't think he ever shuts the voice off.
No, exactly.
Your thoughts on Rorschach, Colton?
He's probably my third most favorite character in the book, but only because like he's so interesting of a character.
Yeah.
And kind of like what I mentioned earlier, where Night Owl and Silk Spectre are the ground, like honestly the middle of the square.
Yeah.
If we have Ozymandias is up here, Rorschach's definitely the yin to the yang, of the darker elements, where he's gone so far into the abyss, he doesn't know how to get out if he even wants to.
I just realized he's kind of like Dante, in Dante's Inferno. He's kind of like Virgil in the sense of he leads Niall into the underworld.
He's the storm that is approaching?
God damn you.
If that's an anime reference, I'm gonna kick your ass.
Video
It's
game
a Devil May
reference.
Cry reference.
Yeah, video game.
But
still.
fair. You can still kick my ass for that. That's fair.
But point is that I mean, not that but I'm saying is that it's as you said, you're right. He is the dark side, the darkness to the lightness of Niall. Because if without him, they wouldn't have gone to that bar to learn about the guys who were shipping or who were making out that hit against Ozymandias. So I understand. Yeah, he is the necessary darkness for this whole thing to work.
Well, it's also I also like how you brought up he's the yin to Ozymandias' yang, because like, whereas Ozymandias is like, no, it's like it's okay for me to slaughter millions because it, you know, the other 6 billion people on this planet will get to live.
It's the wrong means, but it's the right end.
Yeah,
Whereas
right.
Rorschach would look at it as there's only right and wrong.
Yeah,
There is
right.
no in between.
Once
you
again-
don't kill people to save people.
Yeah, exactly. Once again, which for another video, that would be, of course, what I'm saying is like you have utilitarianism with Ozymandias. Why I have
Ozymandias.
Ozymandias? Like
It's okay. It's a hard.
It's a weird
Well,
fucking
because
name.
it's Egyptian.
I know, but no, it's actually Greek. And the thing that fucking pissed me off about that is I know that's a reference. Actually, they quote in the book to a poem by Percy Shelley. So I should fucking know how to pronounce it, but whatever.
Yeah, but
shit
but point
happens.
is, you have him as the utilitarian, while with deontology, it's about no, what's a right action is a right action, no matter what. It's the means, the ends don't justify the means. That's exactly what Rorschach is, and that's why
It was kind of funny you brought up Spock with Ozymandias.
Yeah.
Because like, well, I do think Spock, like, for Spock, the idea is that self-sacrifice sometimes must be done in order to save the multitude.
right.
It's not, hey, like, because I'm pretty sure Spock would be like, you murdered all these people to save your planet. That's kind of fucked up.
Well, no, not just that. Well, you said there self-sacrifice.
Most illogical.
Exactly, but you said self-sacrifice. Spock, which he does at in the first movie, right?
Yeah, because that's like the whole point of like because like I just wanted to kind of like that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few is more the idea that like sometimes you can't save everyone, but if you have to make the choice of I die, but everyone else lives, that's probably the best choice you can make sometimes.
And I think
like because even Spock like brings up, it's like, this is my version of the Kobayashi Maru answer.
right.
I would sacrifice myself to let my crew get away to safety, kind of thing.
But here's the thing, though, with Ozymandias, he would never sacrifice himself.
Yeah.
Because that's not what this. It's not altruism. It's not about what's really good for the many, for the for the world.
Yeah.
It's really what's good for my dick measuring contest with myself.
Whereas, interestingly enough, like, while Rorschach's ideologies are fucked up,
yeah,
you can at least be like, you can at least say, well, he does have a point. Like, especially because what if someone finds out that there is no alien invasion,
yeah.
that you did all this and you killed all these people to save humanity.
You're building a house on a lot.
Yeah, like,
a foundation
You're building a
on-
house of cards.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're building a house of cards because, even at the end when like the two newspaper people find his journal, like it's left open, like what would happen if they actually revealed his journal and like
Right.
revealed that like all this was.
Well, and also but you also mentioned another thing too. It's not just that. He also says, he's talking to Manhattan because Manhattan wants to keep the secret while, he's like, I can't let you go, Rorschach. He's like, so why? So you can protect Veidt's, Ozymandias' name is Andrian Veidt, so you can protect Veidt's utopia. So Rorschach's not just against, it's not just the thing about ethics. It's also, you're giving this guy the ability to pretty much play God with man's fate.
What's a
with,
few more bodies on the pile?
Well, pretty much, I mean, if
Well, what are you waiting for?
I think, yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. No.
Thank you for not blowing my eardrums out.
I wasn't going to.
But the thing I think Rorschach understands, like, this guy is not going to stop with just this. He's going to be a shadow government ruling the world. You're not really making a better world. You're making pretty much a benevolent dictatorship, enlightened dictatorship with Ozymandias as.
Oh man, that's gotta piss Rorschach off so bad as he dies.
Yeah.
Because he was literally right. There's a conspiracy going on, and he's not going to live to actually reveal it.
Exactly.
Damn, that sucks.
Yeah.
That actually sucks.
Do you have any more about Rorschach you want to say? I'll keep mine short to more like, I mean, once again, I agree with you guys, like, pretty much, you guys hit what I love about Rorschach as well. I'm going to talk more about the whole, his morality thing, because I say existential, because what you said about when he talks to the psychiatrist about, it's not God or fate or destiny, it's us. And he says, like, and that's the whole thing about Rorschach, because, he's named after the Rorschach test. His actually mass can take up the Rorschach patterns.
What do you see here, Rorschach?
Some pretty flowers.
Right.
As he imagines a doll getting its face cleaved in half by a meat cleaver.
Because that's what he actually did, exactly. And well, that's the thing though, is that he says like, and he also says like, there is no, to paraphrase, there is no intrinsic meaning. There is nothing meaningful unless we give it meaning. So, to me, and also it's like even though yes he wants a black and white morality, he wants integrity. He doesn't believe there's intrinsic good or evil. He believes that you have to make your own, but you have to stand committed to it. You have to be, uncompromised. Which is, even though what he says about the comedian, like he has a soft spot for the comedian, saying like he respects him and admire him for not compromising, even though even he knows what.
Yeah, like the comedian was a fucked up motherfucker, but damn if he didn't at least stick to his beliefs, I guess.
Yeah. Well, also that's why he supports that stupid newspaper, the New Frontierman, which is kind of like the Fox News of newspaper in this world.
Which is funny because I think it's supposed to be more like a really shitty tabloid.
Oh yeah, definitely, but very political though, very far right, like John Birch bullshit.
But explains things considering how homophobic he is.
Oh, and then of course, I'm sorry, I think not that stupid, but it's really funny. Like he's walking down the street with there's prostitutes and all that. All these women, they're giving French loves and Swedish loves. Where's American love? Like a nice glass of Coca-Cola. It's like,
Bruh.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck? I didn't think Coca-Cola has love.
I mean, I think that also ties into the fact that, his mother was a prostitute.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely psychological. Well, his whole backstory is pretty, disturbing, so.
I'm feeling personally attacked.
No, no, it's not. It's like.
Reviews Coca-Cola's love. Well, damn, fuck me, I guess.
Cool, it's not Doug that's saying that. It's Alan Moore. So if you got to point your anger at anywhere, point it to Moore. There's plenty of people that point their anger towards him.
I think that's kind of
Your
also
accomplices. It's a conspiracy against me and my Coke love. It's a conspiracy.
All right, calm down, Kolchak. What if I got you a nice can of
A
beans?
Soda King was murdered tonight.
Oh my god!
And when the Pepsi whores and the Sprite politicians ask save us, I'll say,
This is up there with me telling you Pepsi Man's a terrorist.
okay. I know
Man's
you're
a
kidding, but
terrorist.
if you ever played Pepsi Man the game, he straight up is a terrorist.
He's a domestic terrorist.
He probably is.
Well, if you're saying that, then you're saying Sonic is when he goes through
maybe
in
he
Sonic
is.
Adventure 2 Sea Escape. But okay, I think it's more like Rorschach is nostalgic for like that 50s like Americana. I think that's more what the whole.
Yeah, I would say that's probably what he's representing there. But like, it also like as the part where he says that the one person may be homosexual. Like
there's a lot.
I don't know if I would, because like a lot of people want to say he's homophobic. Given the nature of his like personality and like his mental stability, I don't know how much I would argue he is homophobic so much as he doesn't understand it.
When we're
and it
getting his
kinda-
internal dialogue, he could easily be an unreliable narrator.
That's true
too.
too. Well, also I think another thing too. I think weirdly there is like this like there is this thing of like there is a lot of like in the society like which of course in the 1980s Reagan's America there was of course a lot of like undercurrent homophobia. So I'm wondering if that's also maybe Alan Moore comment because even
There's
like,
that too.
not
like,
Rorschach, but even like how like a lot of the people when they're protesting against the heroes they use like that slur and homophobic slurs and all that. It's like which seems to I would say for the modern reader for us it's like that seems a bit out of place like or that doesn't make sense. But I imagine like back then that was like Moore's addressing of the homophobia of the times.
But like to dissect it, being an armchair psychologist that I am, I actually kind of think given like Rorschach's character and given like his childhood, I think it's more he has an aversion to sex.
I agree. Yeah, I totally
like
agree
to the
with
point
that.
where he anything that like sexual in a way that isn't like the 50s like
Wholesome.
husband and wife sleep in separate beds.
Exactly.
The wife turns an entire town into their own personal sitcom.
Right.
And then turns.
Also remember when those boys? It wasn't just them like physically attacking him; they were possibly going to like sexually assault him too. So I imagine that also feels this like aversion against anything sexual.
Yeah, I actually argue he's almost like asexual.
I can I definitely agree.
Because especially I do kind of wonder if he has some sort of like he's on the spectrum, given like the way he talks and some of his like
fixations.
Like when he shakes Night Owl's hand and he doesn't like go with the hand.
It's like
there's like this like he
social
sometimes
cues.
doesn't understand social cues.
Yeah. Possibly.
But like I said, I think that's what makes him so interesting is just because like you wonder how much of this is a product of his upbringing, a product of the shit he's seen as Rorschach. And so it makes him very interesting and like probably one of the characters that is the most dissected just because he is so fascinating that way. But I think that's all I want to talk about Rorschach. Anyone else got a...
No, I'm pretty good.
So real quick, do we want to wrap up with ratings, and then we'll dive in next time?
Like
why don't we do
ratings?
that? Like, what rate? What
Rating
how
for
we
the
rate
book.
this book?
Out of
Oh
10.
yeah.
Jeez, Doug, it's like you don't even watch the fucking show.
No. First,
Do you even remember the Hyphen, Doug?
Fuck you! You owe me the review.
look, I already told you. One of these days on April Fools, I'm gonna do with Cody. Forget the Hyphen. Well, we should talk all about nerd
Well,
stuff.
apparently, Doug, you already have forgotten the Hyphen.
First off, okay, I didn't know if you meant the book or characters.
I know.
I was like,
No, we're just gonna talk about like kind of.
Whoever
overall
told
summary.
you that you can work with hyphens?
listen here. Remember the Hyphen is an absentee landlord. He's laughing at you.
Watch
Oh.
that? Never.
Oh, I'm gonna have you podcast, shithead.
Are we doing just Al Pacino quotes this whole time?
We need to just review that movie at some point.
What, Devil's Advocate? Or,
Like Gary Clark
oh,
Gable.
fuck
We
yeah.
just need to review that.
I would be
We have
down.
referenced and memed it to all fucking back. We just need to review the
I'll be
fucking
honest, I
movie.
think Coin Eye.
I do. At the same time, I'm really adverse to doing it just because Kevin Spacey's.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Which,
that's-
but listen, I mean, it helps. Al Pacino roasts the fuck out of him anytime he's on screen. So it's almost like Pacino is punishing him.
That's fair.
That's true. That's fair.
So anyway,
But anyway, like ratings and maybe some like just quick final thoughts.
Yeah.
out of 10, I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. I think it's a very, very important piece of comic book literature, if not literature in general. And I definitely think, like Doug talked about and touched on in the very beginning of the episode, was that it shows that no matter the medium, a good story is literature. Whether or not you agree with the medium or not, good literature is good literature. A story that is a good story and is multifaceted is a good story. And I think this demonstrates exactly that. To anybody that thinks that, like, oh, comic books are, kids stuff and it's all superheroes, punching each other and flying and stuff, this is a real grounded look and a deconstructed look of what would happen if superheroes were real. It's kind of like, I almost hate to say this, it's almost a more tame version of The Boys in terms
No,
of,
I
I
actually would
definitely
agree
agree
with
with
you.
that.
I would agree
in
with you
terms
on
of just
that.
that deconstructionalist. And not only that, I think it's also a very good piece looking at the beliefs of how people thought stuff in the 1980s was going.
Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely like it captures the zeitgeist of that time.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
It's actually one of the reasons why, like, like I said, I actually think we're gonna have to do a part 3 when we talk about it because that movie gets so close to being like perfect.
Well, you guys
Listen,
told me.
we'll do 3 parts and then I'll edit them all together and it's like 5-hour ultimate cut. Watchmen retrospective.
You know what? I'm actually okay with that.
I am
And then
too.
right in the middle, I'll have a separate review of something dumb shit that I keep interjecting in there.
Oh
Also,
my god, that would be.
I'll keep interjecting some fucking like nuclear test footage or some shit. Like so it's like another story's going on.
or no. Put how about
good.
some guy going smoke
No, I'm not gonna do that.
from Family
Smoke
Guy?
yet?
A podcast was murdered this
like-
evening. It'll just go in throughout the whole review.
No,
Yeah,
you
'cause,
do
like-
it for all episodes, like for some reason.
Yeah, but like that's one of the things I actually am glad the movie is set in the 80s because I know that at one point they wanted to make the Watchmen movie, but it takes place in our time, and I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
which I told him about. That it wouldn't work.
it wouldn't work. It would be
the
terrible.
Cold War is essential to it.
Yeah, it's why the ending of that movie gets it so fucking wrong.
Right.
But anyway, continue with your final thoughts, Colton.
Oh, I'm all
you're done?
wrapped up.
Okay, so
the floor is yours, sir.
I'll let Doug go because you're the guest,
Oh, thank you.
and then I'll.
Well, I must say that's-
the floor
that's pretty-
recognizes the man from Atlanta.
Well, now it's Meville, but thank you, good sir. But okay, so I would say definitely. I would have to say 10 out of 10, though. Part of me wonders maybe 9 out of 10 because this is maybe when we talk about the plot. There are things I kind of want to discuss in terms of whether I would say this is definitely A plus work. I would be more comfortable saying A plus. There was just a couple things I want to discuss with you guys, like because like the ending it's good, but I'm wondering did it kind of feel a little bit anticlimactic? I don't know.
No,
like-
I can kind of see where this is going.
no, I'm just saying, but okay, I'm not gonna go too far.
Well, no, I'm just.
Yeah, it's something we'll discuss later.
Yeah, I just say I kind of think I have an idea where this is going.
But no, I would say
conversation-wise.
otherwise though. But I agree with Colin. Pretty much just proves any medium can be art. Any story can be literature, and it's just, I mean, it's a wonderful story of, the human condition against, the, not even just the fate of the nuclear thing, the idea of death of everything, of human history, of the world, and how we as a species try to deal with that with superhero mythos, with science fiction. And then of course, like, there's just so much, so much philosophy, there's so much questions of ethics, of what, not even just what we do in situations, what we do in every day of our lives. And all these characters touch a facet of us, whether it be the nihilist part, the distant, calculative, non-human part, the one who goes in, the darkness, like, that goes too far part, and of course the all too human parts. It really does a great job exploring this, and also it's a very tightly written story. In fact, one thing I did notice at the end, it's 12 chapters of the whole book, and of course each chapter, the clock ticks closer to midnight. So I gotta say, genius. And of course, Alan Moore is a great writer. David Gibbons, beautiful art. Like, that's.
At midnight, the superhuman crew go out and round up everyone that knows more than they do.
I'm going to say this right now.
The times they are changing.
After I'm just saying that.
Wrong song, but
I know.
I'm going to say this. I'll go for my final. I'll go with 10 and 10. I really think it deserves that. So I'll go with 10 and 10.
I think part 2, you and I are gonna need some doobies after this, because I think you and I are gonna be.
listen, I'm gonna come locked and loaded next step. I'm gonna come locked and loaded next episode with just Bob Dylan lyrics, and I'm gonna be like, all right, we're gonna fucking do this.
We're gonna have like a smoke haze around, like.
We're gonna have All Along the Watchtower playing this week.
Jesus.
We watch this.
Adam, your rating?
I'll probably give it a 9 out of 10, but I'm very gun shy about getting anything 10s out of 10s.
Yeah.
That still means I think this book is great. It's not me being like, I'm gonna give this book the worst grade imaginable, an A minus. It's like you said, it's definitely A plus.
Yeah.
It's a story that's very tight. It discusses the psychology of heroes, the idea of what if these heroes were real and they dealt with like actual socioeconomic problems going on at the time, how we would deal with a man who has the ability to change the course of mighty rivers and move faster than a speeding bullet, and the fear of what if this god that walks along with us doesn't give a shit about us,
Actually,
and how we deal with all these ramifications, and also the idea of these morals about like what it means to to never compromise your morals while dealing with something that really would require you to compromise yourself, even if a little bit, and just the ramifications of like the ideals of saving the needs of the many versus never compromising anything about yourself, even in the face of certain doom. At the end of the day, what Moore did here was basically create a story that encompasses the ideals of heroes and why and what those truly mean, especially when you look through them through the lens of reality. Yeah, that's more or less all I got to say. Enough said.
Now let's talk about the real question, though. Do you think you use more blue dongs?
On that note, guys, I'm Average Joe Squad. Awkward pause is awkward.
And I'm Roarstash 134.
Oh my God, you look like Spooderman for a minute.
How do I shot web?
And I'm Harry Parker's fan 94.
And as always,
We ask you.
remember the hyphen?
And give me some fucking beans.
This show sucks.